Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting on Wednesday, October 16th. I will call the meeting to order at 9 a.m. and I'll ask everybody to stand for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land. Faith and love, it all of us command. We get glowing hearts, we see, we rise from true, strong and from far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, keep our glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Smiling right now.
So today was the unveiling of a new O Canada. Wow, that was. Thank you for that, Nathan. I don't think we were expecting that. That was a little bit of a little skip to our morning jump here. Thank you very much for that. Before we start the meeting, I'd just like to acknowledge that we have Mr. Pat Vincent here this morning. Pat's just at the back of the room. Pat will be the acting or interim CAO, and he'll be joining us at the end of the month for a couple months to help us out as we move through the budget and take a little bit of stress off of our senior leadership and the team here. So welcome, Pat, and thank you for coming. So if you see him around, be sure to extend a warm welcome, and thanks for joining us and helping us out for a little while. So thank you, Pat. Are there any additions to the agenda this morning?
Good morning. No additions from administration.
Okay, any from council? Is there a member of council that would like to adopt the agenda as presented for the October 16th, 2024 regular meeting of council? Councilor Gomana, thank you very much. All in favor? That is carried. Any corrections or amendments to the October 2nd, 2024 regular meeting of council minutes? Is there a member of council that would like to adopt? Thank you very much. Councilor McGee, all in favor? That is carried. We have one proclamation this morning, which is 5.1, which is World Polio Day 2024. World Polio Day, whereas Rotary is a global network of neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who unite and take action to create lasting change in communities across the globe. Whereas Rotary efforts with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative have reduced polio cases by 99.9% since the first project to vaccinate children in the Philippines in 1979. Whereas Rotary has contributed more than $2.7 billion in countless volunteer hours to protecting more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. Whereas these efforts are providing much needed operational support, medical staff, laboratory equipment, and education materials for health workers and parents. Whereas to sustain this progress and continue to reach every child with the polio vaccine, whereas over 1.2 million Rotary members in more than 35,000 clubs across the world sponsor service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in their local communities and abroad. Therefore, I, Mayor Nancy Dodds, on behalf of the Council of the Town of Drayton Valley, do hereby proclaim October 24th, 2024 as World Polio Day in the Town of Drayton Valley and encourage all citizens to join me and the Rotary International in the fight for a polio-free world. And that is our only proclamation this morning. We do have one public hearing, which is 6.1. The public hearing is for development permit D24-028, Brazel Foundation Edition at Shangri-La Lodge Complex. I will now open the public hearing at 9:05 a.m. and I will hand it over to Mr. Woodcliff this morning.
Good morning. Proposed development is located, as you mentioned, at the Shangri-La Housing Complex at 5208 47th Avenue. The applicants propose constructing a 3-floor, 27-unit apartment building that includes 21 studio and 6 one-bedroom apartments. The property is districted high-density residential, and the purpose of this district is to provide for medium and high-density development by allowing comprehensive multiple-unit dwelling developments and apartments, and this building is permitted in this district. There's a great demand for affordable seniors housing in Alberta due to aging population, financial constraints seniors face, and a limited availability of units. This proposal, while it's permitted, they are requesting 2 variances, one to parking and one to density. Requested variance for density is 17%, and the parking variance is 50%.
Thank you very much for that. Those present today for the public hearing are myself, council, administration, members of the public, and those online. I'll now call for comment from anyone on the floor this morning. Does administration have any comments that were received with the application?
We did receive some comments. Did you want me to read them?
Sure.
Okay. I'll read us just a summary of them.
Yeah.
Public was concerned about traffic congestion and road safety issues on 47th Avenue, that there may be better locations for this facility somewhere else in town. Reduction of green space will negatively impact the quality of life in the area. The building will block the sun from adjacent properties. Facility will reduce adjacent property values. Moving the building to the northeast side of the property is a better option. However, they did recognize that there is a need for this type of housing. Comment was made that there's not enough parking at the facility currently for the number of vehicles there. And one resident wanted to clarify that this is not just a seniors complex, it's also for disabled people. And I wasn't aware of that, so she corrected me on that.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Do we have any comments online? None? If there's no other comments? Sorry, Nathan?
Just,
Okay. Councillor McGee?
Vivian, do you want to make a comment? And I only raise it because I know you live near, and it's unusual to see you in the council chambers. So you might be here to comment on this particular open house. But, and
So there is a comment from the floor. Good morning.
Good morning. Vivian Braden. We're just on, just half a block away from the senior lodge. And I think, yes, we need it very badly. We need an extension on it. The only thing both my husband and I are really concerned about is the parking. There's a parking stall apparently on the very far south side along 47th Avenue. Now, this parking is for seniors, is it not?
Good question.
Where do the seniors, there are a lot of seniors that do drive, and they used to park behind the lodge.
Okay,
And they used to come out and they, it's straightforward, seeing which way they're going. Now, these people that are going to be driving into this parking lot on 47th Avenue, coming in and going to be, their front of their vehicle would be facing north, for example. Then they're coming out, going home out of that park. That is a fairly busy street. I foresee, and there's kids walking there. There's, they're going, we're a little concerned that there's an accident to happen.
Thank you very much for your comments this morning. We appreciate you coming in and attending our public hearing. One of our decision items this morning will be a discussion around the first or the development permit for the Brazeau Foundation or Foundation Edition. And we'll be discussing in a little bit more detail of what the parking looks like and perhaps the conditions that may be attached to this permit as well.
Yeah, it just seems that where they're parking those 11 stalls or whatever it is, yes, 11 stalls, they would be coming out, backing out right on the avenue. And that's a little bit of a concern because it's not only one resident backing out, it's a number of them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Is there any other comments from the floor?
Madam Mayor, we have, luckily, we have Dwayne and Dakota here from the Brazeau Foundation, who may want to just sort of speak to that or not, because it's just a public hearing, so we're here to hear.
That's right.
So if you want to, then you could, or you,
I'll
there, so you may not know Dwayne and Dakota, they're right there beside
no, I
you.
don't know.
They're right from the foundation, so.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for that. If there's no other comments online from the floor, then I will close the public hearing at 9:12 a.m. Thank you very much. We'll move along on the agenda. We have 3 delegations this morning. Our first delegation is 7.1, which is the RCMP. We have Staff Sergeant Ryan Hoopner here this morning. Good morning and welcome. Hopefully you enjoyed the new singing of our national anthem this morning.
I did. I was unsure when it started.
What was going on?
But it definitely was a little more upbeat.
Right?
So that's good. All right. I get to run this today.
Yeah.
I've never run the clicker before.
Can you, is it here as well?
Oh, yeah. it is
Okay,
there.
so it's here, so you don't
Okay,
have to
perfect.
turn around.
Okay, so we'll just start with our basic, actually I like the next slide better because it's a little more visually appealing. Crime stats kind of have stayed the same. As you can see, we're kind of 0% decrease, or you could say 0% increase, which is more positive. So we're kind of holding steady there, which is good because as I've kind of reported all year, we're down quite significantly when we look at our 5-year trend. We do have a little bit of concern when it comes to our motor vehicle thefts that started to climb here in the fall and September. So I just want to remind everybody, we're getting into colder temperatures. There is a crew around town. It's our same prolific offenders we've always worked since I've been here. But they're out of jail currently. And as it gets colder, please lock your cars. Don't leave them running with the keys in it. It's a quick smash and grab and they'll be gone. So just remember that as we get into the colder months. And we are actively working to curb the trend we're seeing. We have a couple targets that we are currently working. So hopefully we can get those numbers back down. This is a fun new chart I put in. Just got lots of numbers, but we get lots of crime. I get lots of crime data sent to me, and it's just something that when we police, we're not just policing on in like hunches or anything like that. This is why it's so important to report, is because we are always mapping our crime. And so, and then we're responding with watching the way the trends are going or, yeah. And so this is a map. What I think is kind of neat about this is you can kind of see, because we do initiatives per month. And so I'll use this to kind of look, okay, over the past years, what have been our issues this past month traditionally? Because sometimes crime has trends, sometimes it doesn't. And then we'll set our kind of proactive efforts on that. The one thing you can notice in this, our mental health calls are up this year. We're at 121 when last year we were at 97. So that's a significant task on us because that often causes a run to Ponoka for us. That is our closest designated facility. So that's kind of a significant burden. The other calls that are significantly up is our mischief calls. And we're at 191 instead of 135. And you can see we peaked with 33 in August. Those calls are individuals, we're talking about our unsheltered individuals that are often found in places. We'll define that as mischief, basically obstructing the enjoyment of that property. So I know the town felt a lot of pressure in August, and the stats do show that was definitely up in August. We've trended down in September, but I don't know whether that trend down will continue as it gets colder. But you can see that we are up in that. That is caused, and I know I've said this over and over again, by just a few individuals. We had one individual since September 1st has taken 30 calls for service. So when you look at how high we're up, that one individual, that's a call a day. Another individual took 19. So that's 50 calls just between two individuals since September 1. The individual with 30 calls, we transported them to Ponoka again this weekend. But as we know, the history will probably repeat itself where that person won't stay long in Ponoka and they'll be back in the community. So we're doing what we can. We've also charged that individual 6 times in the last 3 weeks, and the other individual with 19 calls, we've charged 3 times in the last 3 weeks. So we'll see. We'll monitor that, but yeah, we're working to do what we can. The other thing, just like I said, our theft of motor vehicles overall are down, but if you look on that chart, you can see August, September, we're up 5 and 6 in each month. So that is something we are actively watching and are aware. On the good side, our break and enters are way down, and actually the community is doing a much better job locking their doors because our theft from vehicles are way down compared to last year. So we're locking our doors at night, which is good. The only other thing I got to report is in September, we executed a search warrant. It was probably our busiest drug house in town. We had neighborhood complaints about it. It was right on 50th, just kind of east of 7-Eleven. And we arrested 6 individuals in there. We seized 126 grams of cocaine, 7.1 grams of fentanyl, 9.7 grams of methamphetamine, 75 grams of psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, and almost $7,000 Canadian currency, along with a number of weapons. As I said, 6 individuals were arrested, charged, and leading to, actually the charges have gone up because we've had some. We have 18 charges in total on those 6. So it was a really busy house. It was good work by our GIS crew. It was all proactive work that they did, and kudos to the neighbors calling us. That helps as well. We know about the house, but it always helps for getting our authorizations when neighbors are complaining and saying, hey, that's a drug house. So we use that in our search warrants when we're drafting it, say, hey, the neighbors are also complaining about this. So that is some success, and they'll continue on doing their work. The only other comment I have is we have a program called, it's kind of weird, an acronym. It's CPTED. It's Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. If there's any businesses or anybody who wants to utilize that, I have an individual I can contact. He was here last week and he did a commercial business in town, met with them and walked through their yard. They've been getting hit a lot over the summer. And so he came in last week and walked through their yard, just takes a look at the yard and just talks about the design of it and how they can maybe curb that just through the environmental design. So that is a service we offer. So if anybody wants to do that, they can just get a hold of me and I can get a hold of Chad Kronk is the guy's name, and he'll come down and do that. Other than that, we did some positive ticketing. Kevin Young at Dairy Queen was nice enough to donate us a bunch of free sundaes. So we were standing out in front of the schools, giving them to kids wearing helmets, which is really fun when you give one to a kid wearing a helmet and his friend beside him doesn't have one. So that's good. Just trying to reinforce some good behavior there. And we've continued on with our coffees with the seniors. We did that this month as well. I'll take questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your report this morning. Any questions this morning? Councillor Clark?
Morning, Ryan.
Morning.
We were at Alberta Municipalities Conference a couple weeks ago and got chatting with the mayor from Vegreville, and he mentioned, we got talking about crime and such, and And he mentioned that there was about 6 individuals that equated to, that accounted for 60% of the open files with the RCMP in that town, right? So it's probably no different than Drayton Valley, we have the same offenders. Now, when we look at things like, the break-in enters and, the vehicle thefts, like you said, it's the same people. What do we do? What do we do about that when they're known, right? And it's just habitual and over and over and over. And it's taking up your guys' time from dealing with other things, right?
Yeah, I've been policing a long time, and it is, like you said, I wouldn't know what our number is, but depending on the crime, like I said, when we look at our mischiefs, it's probably 6 individuals that are like 80%. When we talk about vehicle thefts, it's probably 3 or 4 that are 60, 70%. And so, I don't know how as police, when I look at us police, we get the intel, this individual's moved back to town, we confirm that, and then we actively start working that vehicle or that individual, but it's hard. You have to catch them doing the offense, so it takes time. And I was just talking to Corporal Northeast about that today, where he said it's like an addiction. Like, they get out, they don't need it, they have a place to stay. Why are they doing it? What are they getting from them? They're not shipping these trucks out to Vancouver and selling them on containers. You know what I mean? They're just stripping the wheels off them. If they're nice, they're using them as crime trucks. Other than putting them back in jail, I don't have the answer for that. As a community, I don't know how we get harder on that. They come back in, they have a place to stay. They're not part of our unsheltered population. They're living, yeah. So.
I'm thinking about, we talked about the interventions with the homeless folks that are maybe have the mental health issues or addictions, and doing those interventions. Now, can you do something similar with those sorts of folks? Like you said, it's not they don't need it. It's an addiction,
Yeah.
right? So is it something that can be intervened on?
Yeah, and we do have our prolific offender management program where we do, it's like an early intervention task force. The trouble with that is it has to be voluntary.
Right.
So that individual has to sign up for that program. But we have 2 officers that will try and recruit for that program, and it has to be voluntary. And we have trouble.
The uptake is really high, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have trouble recruiting people. And a little bit of that is, you can imagine as police, when we show up to recruit somebody and say we're here to help, and we've chased that individual for 15 years, they're not quick to trust us about that either. So we have to work really hard to overcome that. But also, it takes commitment from them to show up and attend meetings and follow through. And yeah, and we cannot bring them into that program without a signed consent form. So, and I mean, the court can mandate that, but I've never seen that super successful.
I was just wondering that if it could be mandated, right? It would make more sense if they're, as part of their role or, sentencing or things like that.
Yeah, and so that program is unique in the fact that it has to be voluntary, just because of all the outside agencies and what personal information shared. So they have to sign off, basically, that personal information can be shared. The court has mandated somebody to do that program. They got a little upset because that program is not meant for that. But I always struggle when what I've seen is when it's mandated, the buy-in from that individual is not high. They're just trying to get through their 12 months of what's mandated and then move on. It has to come from themselves, where they actually want to be in that program, want to partake in it.
Yeah. Any other questions? Councillor McGee?
Morning, Ryan. So 2 quick things. Winter is approaching, and so will we see some increase or decrease, and you're ready for it? And I'm thinking mainly of our unhoused, because it's going to get cold, and we today are going to be making decisions based on some grant programs that we've got for Warming Hearts and for our pod program. And so, and I know that you work really closely with those groups. So are we doing anything different as we head into winter?
Well, Lola would be better to talk about this, but I believe the pods is going to have some security now, which should help with our limiting the bans. there, I would hope, so we can get some people back in there and control that a little bit more. I've been here long enough that we still had the MAP program when I was first here, and that was a supervised program. We probably had less issue with bands there, though it was not as readily accessible. So there's a balance there. So I think if we can, that should help us at the pods. That really is our best option for where they need to sleep. We've got our banks on board now. They're locking their doors or they've hired security. So we're not getting called to our banks. The post office is the next one to get on board, but I'll leave that there. But yeah, we're ready as we can be. It is getting cold. And so do I expect a downturn? I don't, because the desperation to find shelter will be a little higher. But I think as a community, we're counterbalancing that with trying to open up what we have to make it available for them.
And last question, if, when we talk about mandating care, you're one person with 30 calls. And
Yep.
so the transportation to Ponoka, was that a decision that you can make with the RCMP, or is that made by a judge somewhere?
No, that was us. Eventually it came to the point where we apprehended them under the Mental Health Act and transported them to Ponoka ourselves then. So that's done by us. The Mental Health Act, we interact with it lots as police, obviously. But it has to be, for us to apprehend somebody and take the freedom away, it has to be basically come to the point where they no longer can care for themselves or they're at risk to harming themselves. So a risk of harm can be, suicide, or it just can be the inability to care for yourself anymore. And it had come to that point where we felt, the officers on the weekend felt like they'd come to the point that they just couldn't care for themselves anymore. So they transported that individual.
And is there a time limit?
No. Once we turn them over to the designated facility there, it is completely on the doctors there to determine release.
Thank you.
Councillor Kamana?
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Regarding the, I guess, RPAC team that we were working on a while back, I believe they are based out of Rocky Mountain House. Do we get some interventions from them in Drayton Valley, and how's that going? Stuff like that.
Yeah, we do. We do referrals often to them, and they're probably here once a week. They do help. They are not available for the situation that's happening right now normally, unless they're here. So they're more a follow-up team. But yeah, they are here, and we do utilize their service quite a bit.
Okay. If they had a unit in Drayton Valley or close to Drayton Valley, would that change how they intervene, or?
Yeah, they would then be available for those calls that are happening right now. Yes. Yeah, it would be. I know we as a community walked down that process quite a ways and got a no. It's something we're interested in. We could always take a look at it again and see what they say. I know it's challenging because it's not just us that staff it, but Alberta Health as well. But yeah, they're a good team. They're a good source. And at this point, and I haven't seen that we expanded it last year. Hinton got a team that's a regional team, kind of like Rocky Mountain House, and I haven't seen any talk of expanding it past there. But I'd have to dig into that.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just made a little note about the PAC team. This afternoon, we have our organizational meeting, and as I was going through, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I see we no longer have that committee. So yeah, I don't know if that's a conversation that we do want to revisit again, or maybe it could even be included in part of the what is the committee called that we have? Yeah, policing, security, fire services.
Yep.
Maybe something can come out of there. You guys can talk about it and see if there is a desire to kick that back up again and try to get something here for sure. So I just want to say great work on the drug bust. That's fantastic, taking the drugs off the street, and that's pretty big for our community. So thank you and the team for doing that. And also that we appreciate your efforts and everything that you're doing. Just bringing this in today really shows us, kind of what you're up against and where you're fighting the crime and things like that. And particularly when it comes to the mischief and the homeless population, we can see, what that looks like this year against last year and things like that. And one of the things we've talked about is, you know, it can't just be on you. It has to be a community effort. And one of the things too is the businesses that, you know, getting them out of the vegetables and experiencing stuff like that. Don't call the police. It's up to the businesses to be taking charge of that and, you know, making those calls unless there's a crime being committed. So that's one of the things that we're trying to get out to the community is everybody has their part and everybody has their role. So it's definitely a community effort and we definitely appreciate everything that you're doing. One of the things too, you had mentioned for the RCMP going out on some of these calls. Have you connected with our community resource worker, our new officer through Lola when things like that are happening? So we can have those resources or services available?
Yeah, we have, Lola and I met with Vanessa a few weeks back, and then we just kind of finalized our, what we call our procedure process of how it's going to work. So I divvied that out to all the members last week, Thursday, with Vanessa's contact. So that kind of took some time to figure out how exactly that was going to work, but that's been set and we should be away. So the goal will be to bring Vanessa with us.
Oh,
to
perfect.
lots of those calls, yeah.
Good. So yeah, hopefully that will help, you know, alleviate some of the workload and pressure that is on you as well as like we talked about, you know, Lola's going to be talking later about the security around the pods and things like that. So I think all these little steps towards that direction will, you know, hopefully we'll see and you'll see the change there. A couple other things, the crime prevention through environmental design. How does somebody get information if you're a business for that?
They can just call the detachment and ask for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just call the detachment if
Yep.
you're a business and you're looking for ways to
Yep.
secure your,
That's right.
your business?
Yeah, and then I'll connect them with Chad and then they can communicate to set up a time that works for him to come.
Okay, perfect. And maybe we could even include it in our little comms piece or something when we're talking about community safety and things like that for businesses. If you're looking at ways to secure your businesses, please reach out and forward that on because probably a lot of people don't know. So that's
Yeah.
a service that's fantastic. Thank you. And then one final question is, have you heard any news on the modulars for the detachment?
I got sent a proposal I didn't like, so I've kicked it back.
Oh, well, keep us in the loop and hopefully it comes better suited to the needs of the detachment.
Yeah, I kicked it back and said, hey, so we're working on that. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming in and sharing the stats with us and keep up the great work and we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Next up is 7.2, Drayton Valley Municipal Library Delegation. Did you know you were presenting?
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. All right, my name is Rebecca and I am the manager at the Drayton Valley Library.
Good morning and welcome.
Oh, thank you. So I'm here today to share the budget and also some other amazing things we have done to the library over, I would say, the past 8 or 9 months. So let me click here. Oh, wait. I'm going to do the budget at the end. I just need, sorry. Okay. Actually, I'm going to do the other slideshow first. Sorry. What? Okay. Well, this is, I'll talk about this in a minute, but I'll give you some other information. I did have another slideshow. It's okay. I can give you some information. The beginning of 2024 saw new leadership, and with that came change, growth, and revitalization within the library space. And so basically, I was going to talk about some grants that the library has applied for and received, all the programs we offer, upgrades to the library space, library collections, our plan going forward, and the proposed budget for 2025. So some of the grants that we applied for, we actually received $20,000, and it's a grant for rural libraries. And the grant we received is going towards adding stuff within the library to help newcomers in the community. So we're looking at adding a computer specifically for people to use to access government documents or to do resumes. And we're also looking at adding additional resources, possibly in other languages, just so when newcomers, you know, come into the library, it's always nice to see something in their own language, as well as, you know, getting resources to help with English as a second language. So we have that grant that needs to be used by 2025. The library has also applied for the Drayton Valley Community Foundation grant. So that is currently pending. And there was one other grant that I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, we do receive the SRC grant 3,500 from FCSS. And so, yeah, that's what we have going on with that. Now, the library. Oh. Okay. So the library also offers diverse programs, and I'm very pleased we do have a new programmer at the library. And she is adding a whole bunch of new programs that we're excited about for all ages and abilities. So a lot of our programs are very well attended. And, you know, because we're constantly adding resources to the library, you know, we have that opportunity, like we have the 2 3D printers. So hopefully, you know, we can get it up and running so people can start coming in and being able to do their own 3D prints. You know, we have arts and crafts for the kids. We have movie programs. You know, hopefully we'll have something for older adults and seniors. So that's really good. Also with our library collection, we weeded a lot of older items in the library because it was just too much. Like people were coming in and they couldn't find what they were looking for. So we took away a lot of the older items. We've cleaned everything up, and we're currently bringing in, you know, at least 100 to 150 new items every month, just to keep our collection new and current. And then what else? I'll get onto this slideshow here. So for anyone who hasn't been in the library for a while, it will come as a big surprise to see how the library has transformed in just over 10 months. The library went from cluttered chaos to an open, organized, reimagined space. Accessibility has improved, and the positive feedback from patrons has been enormous. So this is our library refresh. With new management in place, the library staff were eager to give the library a refresh. The overstuffed shelves and small boxed-in areas felt claustrophobic and dark. The staff felt that a change was needed. Oops. Okay. So in the children's area, these are pictures of what it used to look like. So with the help of many volunteers, we were able to pull off a huge refresh over the weekend of April 13th to the 15th, 2024. The main focus was the cramped children's area. So a common complaint was that there was very little room to move around in the space. More than half of the windows were blocked by shelves. And of course, you know, right now, the majority of people that do use the library are, you know, families with kids. So when they came in, like we couldn't even get a stroller around there. Like it was just crazy. So this is what we did. This is after. So with the help from grants secured by the Friends of the Library, we bought new furniture and a colorful area rug. And so the children's area more than doubled in space after our refresh. Okay, and our program space, the before picture, yeah, I mean, that still looked a little bit better than what it was like, you know, a long time ago. So our volunteers spent the weekend building new furniture, painting, and moving bookshelves more than we care to remember. And that is our after program space. And I mean, there's still a few things we have to do. We bought like some cupboards. We want to mount covers on the wall. We want it to kind of be a STEAM place back there. You know, so people can go back there, use the 3D printers. We currently have a sewing machine set up back there. So if people want to come in and do that, they have access to it. So we just want it to be a more practical, usable space than it was. Okay, and our lounge area. So this is before it was cluttered, cramped, and claustrophobic. Again, it was too much stuff. People couldn't move around. There was just so many things that people felt overwhelmed. And, you know, we had a lot of stuff, but the stuff wasn't really going out because people, they just came in and they were like overwhelmed. So after we moved everything, you know, we actually had a nice open space and it was filled with light and people could come in, they could sit and relax by the window. They could actually see the window. It wasn't blocked by anything and it just made people feel more comfortable, you know, that they actually wanted to spend time in the library instead of just coming in, getting what they wanted and then leaving. So we do have more people coming in and actually utilizing the space. And our front desk was also cluttered and very cramped. So we also reduced the amount of stuff. We reconfigured the circ desk to make it more versatile, usable. We had a second desk beside the main circ desk that didn't match the furniture. So we actually got rid of that and we reconfigured it. So now we have 2 people up at the main desk. And it's just more open and inviting instead of having, you know, the screens up. We took down because, well, COVID is, you know, past. And so people were surprised when they came in. It's like, wow, we can actually like go up to the desk and we can talk to somebody now, you know, and it looks better. And then cleanup and weeding. So I mentioned that we spent some time going through our collection and weeding a lot of our older books. Honestly, I know some people really like, you know, the older books, but with our space, we can't always have those older books. I mean, certainly people are like, they can request books from other libraries, you know, other libraries, bigger libraries, they can house those older books. So you spend a lot of time cleaning up. So now when people come in, instead of looking at the cluttered shelves, they can come in, they see a nice clean shelf, they can easily see the books, they can see the book they want, and they're good to go. And our entranceway was also really congested. We had, you know, fairly often we would do book sales. So we would have like bookshelves in the way of the window, kind of like blocking everything. So we opened it up. It's more accessible. You know, when patrons come in, we have 1 or 2 bookshelves. So now they're able to pick up their own holds. So, I mean, they still have to come to us to get them checked out, but we're not keeping so much behind the desk. And, you know, we're promoting our kits, we're promoting our new books that we have available. So it's a lot easier and, you know, more accessible. And that's it. So, I mean, for anyone that hasn't been to the library in a while, it would be nice if you stopped by and took a look.
Thank you very much for your presentation this morning. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Councillor Clark?
So what next?
So-
You got lots on the go.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. We have lots of plans. I think the biggest nightmare was just looking around and fixing, like, you know, getting all the old stuff out, like, you know, trying to make the library look better and more welcoming. So, I mean, we definitely have plans. It's just a matter of funds and when, you know, we're able to implement our goals and our plans.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a fantastic job there. I know even just walking by in the foyer, you can see it's so much brighter in there.
Yes, it looks
It's just
so
cleaner,
much
so-
clean. Like, you know, even I come in there like first thing in the morning, I'm like the only one in the library and I look around, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. Like, it feels so inviting and it's like just a nice, clean space. So I think for, the size of Drayton Valley, I think that we should really feel proud of our library and just the amount of work that we've done in the past like 9 or 10 months.
Yeah, no, great job.
Yeah.
Councillor Kamana?
Thank you. I'm just gonna echo the same message. I was there last Friday because there was no school for kids and I spent considerable amount of time there, and you guys have done a great job there.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's easier to maneuver around, and the event space, they had a nature course happening there last Friday, and yeah, it felt like the space can be more utilized now. So
Yes.
thank you very much for.
Yeah,
for your
exactly. And now that we have an awesome programmer and she's coming up with new ideas and just getting the kiddos excited. So yeah, it's great. So now as for our budget, this took a little bit of time. Like we really had to, think about what we wanted to do in the library and where we were going. So basically, the library board is not asking for increased funding for 2025. We're going to keep it exactly the same for the town as well as for the county. So this is a breakdown of all the funding that we do receive. So we get funding from the town, the county, and we also receive some provincial grants. The only difference with this budget is we've actually allocated funds to different areas. So we've increased our funding for, I think it's on this one right here, for library resources to increase our collections. We are looking at expanding or introducing some new collections. So currently the library, Friends of the Library purchased 2 Nintendo Switches. And I know video games are really popular, so we're thinking of adding a video game collection. And then just making sure that we're staying current so we can purchase as many books as we're able, as well as, additional resources. Lots of other libraries, they have what's called a library of things. So you can go in and you can borrow like tools, skis, snowshoes. I mean, I don't know if it's a thing we're thinking about right now, but with the increased funding, there's lots of possibilities to do different things. We've also increased funding for professional development in order for all the staff to stay current, when opportunities arise for staff to go to conferences, or even if we have to bring somebody in to do some training, we've allocated some more funding towards that. We've also put in funding for like staff events, like retreats or a Christmas party, something like that. This is something that staff previously didn't have funding for, so that's new and, that's exciting. Basically all the other costs I do believe are the same. And then on the very last here, I'm just going to take a look. So our total operating expenditure, and then we do have capital expenditures. So a few things that the library is looking at is like, the bathroom, flooring. Also, the library currently doesn't have a place for like private study or for people to do exams. So we've been looking into study pods. I've looked into a couple different companies. And if we could get 1 or 2 study pods, that would help immensely. So basically it would be a 1-person pod. They would have to book it and they could have it for 2 or 3 hours. And it completely blocks out the noise from the rest of the library. And yeah, it would just be a great asset because we do have a lot of, tutoring or people coming in to do exams. And these are completely mobile. So if we ever did move, we would be able to take them with us, as well as they're on wheels. So we can move them around to the library, depending on where, we need them. And the library is also looking at purchasing a permanent storage space. So we're looking into purchasing a CCAN. And I think that is about it, but that's what we have going on for 2025.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're heading into budget discussions in the next month, so we'll be looking at this as well. One question, do you still receive funding from Parkland County?
No,
No?
no, it's only Brazeau County and you guys.
Okay. Any questions in regard to the budget?
And regarding the budget,
Councilor McGee?
the things that are on your capital budget are flooring. We're working together,
Mhm.
I think. Bathroom situation and your study pods.
Mhm.
The question I think is, when do you think you would like to conclude that, Rebecca? I have a sidebar question about the Christmas party, but.
When we would like to have the flooring finished?
Right, and the bathrooms, because we know that there's been some discussion about reduced hours and things like that.
Mhm.
Has that discussion, how has that gone?
We've talked about reducing hours briefly just because it is very difficult, especially in the evenings, for patrons not to have access to a bathroom. So 3 days a week, we're open until 8 p.m. and the town office closes at 5. So that leaves 3 hours that if people did want to come into the library, they have nowhere to go to the bathroom, which is very unfortunate. So there has been a little bit of talk, like we really don't want to reduce the library hours in the evening because we feel that there's still a lot of programs we could offer to the community. Like that's when the majority of the people are free to come to the library for programs. So, I mean, we would like to hopefully have another solution. But yeah, I guess we'll just see what happens.
Okay, and I just really wanted to put that forward so council is aware of that, and then we will have further discussions on that as well. The Christmas party, there was an ask of whether or not you could to join us at the Christmas party. And that's the question that I'll put to council at some point in time to see if that can actually fit.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Great job on the
Yes.
library. It looks absolutely fantastic, and all the renovations and little fine touches that you've put on everything is very welcoming to all the patrons. And yeah, just great job to you and your staff, and we appreciate you coming in this morning.
All right, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And our third delegation, 7.3 this morning, is the Kickstand Drayton Valley Youth Hub. Good morning and welcome. You want to start by introducing yourselves and then you can kick it off.
Go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Hay, and I'm with Kickstand, the provincial team.
My name's Johanna Shaw, and I'm the program manager that gets to work in the Youth Hub every day. And over here is Cindy. She's the executive director of the PCN, which is our lead agency here in Drayton Valley.
Well, perfect. Well, welcome and go ahead.
Thank you. Just before I start, I wanted to say thank you. I have been to Drayton Valley a few times now to work with the team here and met many people, and it's such a warm and welcoming community, and I really, really love it. And I love the drive here. So thanks for having me today. I am just going to talk briefly kind of the big picture of Kickstand and then pass it to Johanna to talk a lot about what's been going on and specifically in Drayton Valley. So just to ground where we're at in terms of this conversation, I want everybody to think about young people in your life, whether your own children, nieces, nephews, friends of your children, but everybody probably knows somebody who's struggling a little bit in their lives, because it's very common for people who are 12 to 25 years old to start to struggle with their mental health. And I think the biggest problem that we have in the way that our systems are structured is really knowing where to go for help. So Kickstand is trying to answer this question. It's an evidence-based model that's been implemented in a lot of different countries, lots of different provinces, and really helps people find the door that they need to go to get help. This might be somebody who's gaming too much, You don't really know what to do. It might be someone who's withdrawing from school or from their friends. It might be someone who's clearly anxious, has a hard time just leaving the house. But everybody probably can think about somebody, and just keeping them in mind as we have this conversation, I think, is the most important thing. So we know that lots of people talk about the different barriers that they experience when they're trying to seek help, especially for young people. So they don't know where to go. Everything changes when they turn 18. So everything that was there keeping them well is all of a sudden not there. Lots of different directions. You might go somewhere and someone says, oh, we can help you with this part, but you need to go over here to get help with this other part of your life. And so the young person and their family and caregiver are always kind of the ones who have to quarterback coordinating those different systems, different providers. Oh, I have to tell my primary care doctor what my therapist said, or I have to tell my school teacher what my doctor said. And so it's always the responsibility of the people who are probably in, the worst place for them to have to be responsible for doing that. Services are often offered during business hours. So parents or caregivers have to take time off work to take their young people to appointments. And sometimes they just don't fit. So we might have an 18-year-old who goes to an adult service and really doesn't feel like that's where they belong. Maybe they don't go back again, which is very, very common. So lots of different barriers that we see and experience in our systems. And these have been cataloged for many, many years from families and caregivers primarily, but also from young people who report some of their own issues in terms of trying to maintain their health and wellness. Really what we know is that there's a large prevalence of mental health concerns in our population. So we know that our young people are starting to experience emerging symptoms of mental illness. We also know that a really small percentage of them actually get connected to services. Most of the green bar, that discrepancy, they just don't go anywhere. And then what happens is they experience trouble at school. They start using drugs or substances. They have difficulty with their primary relationships at home. So all of a sudden we see them way downstream where you think, oh, how did they get all the way here where they're getting kicked out of school when it probably started, years, months ago, and we haven't been able to identify them. So we're really trying to bring those two bars closer together with integrated youth services. It's just showing you this is a really common model. We're very connected with evidence and research that's being created actually all the way across the country. Many provinces have initiatives that are in different stages of implementation. And then Kickstand is Alberta's provincial initiative, and Drayton Valley is one of our communities. We have fully operational Kickstand centers so far in Bonnyville, Fort Saskatchewan, and Grand Prairie. We are opening a Kickstand Edmonton center in January, and we're working with 7 other development communities, and one of those is Drayton Valley. And we have 3 nation projects as well. And that's all I wanted to say, so I'll give it.
So for my side of things, I get to work in there every single day. Our numbers have grown so much over the last little while. So a brief overview of our journey with the hub. The Youth Hub's been operating in its current location since 2022, but it had long been a project under the Healthy Communities Coalition since 2018. It started with research through the RISE project. Lola was a part of that. It continued into policy-wise, Canadian Mental Health Association, and now the very strong background of Kickstand. So throughout our time, even over just the last year, the numbers have grown, and so have the needs of the youth that we're seeing in our community. From January 2023 to January 2024, the Youth Hub had a total of 616 visits. January 2024 to today, so less than a whole year, we've seen 1,376 visits come through the doors, averaging 50 to 60 individual youth coming in every month to seek services, whether they're prevention or a therapy based. With our numbers more than doubled, the needs that we're met with daily include food insecurity, mental health, addiction concerns, social service needs. We also see sexual exploitation coming in. We have unhoused youth coming in. And with the help of our new lead agency, the Drayton Valley Primary Care Network, as well as other partnering organizations, we have the ability to provide the services. What we really lack currently is the space. We have about 1,200 square feet, and we've outgrown the current location. Our partnership in the community currently includes, but isn't limited to, the Drayton Valley Primary Care Network, the Family Resource Network, Aim for Success Mental Health Capacity Building, AHS Sexual Health Nurse, Dietitian, Health Promotion Facilitator, and the COPE PISECA Sexual Exploitation Prevention Program, as well as local Indigenous groups. The services these organizations are able to offer in an integrated youth services setting are both preventative and restorative in nature, not only helping our local youth, but our community as a whole. So what our lovely officer was talking about earlier with some of the troubles we're having in town with our unhoused population, the older population, this is what we're trying to prevent far beyond when those problems start to occur. The larger physical location will not only allow us to assist more youth, but it will provide us with the space necessary to ensure young people in Drayton Valley have barrier-free access to the higher level services that they need to succeed. So in our current location, we don't have a space where we can provide the clinical services that we have the ability, we have the staff and all of the support backing it, but we don't have the space. I know some of you have been into our current location and have seen how busy it gets in there. And so, yeah, it would just be really nice to be able to add more of what we have the manpower to do, just don't have the room to do it currently, the appropriate places. So I think our big ask is some bridge funding, but Catherine will get into some other details.
All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to just talk a little bit. So we do receive funding at a provincial level from the Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction, and lots of buy-in from a number of provincial partners like Recovery Alberta, Alberta Health Services, our different primary care networks. What we really don't have any funding for is on the capital side. So we know that Drayton Valley needs to relocate, and we work really closely with philanthropic partners to raise funds in order to create those really youth-friendly spaces and locations. We work closely with the Mental Health Foundation, which is a provincial foundation. They're our key kind of philanthropic partner. So they have already, we have set aside a number of dollars for this particular project, but we will be looking to kind of community to say, how can we also support within your community the creation of this center where we'll be able to offer these integrated services. So this is a very high level budget around what we think it's going to cost to move to a new center that's more in the range of 5,500 square feet. So the primary care network is seeking out potentially suitable space. And then from there, we'll look at construction and renovation of that space in order to meet the needs of the project. We do have money for design and planning within our provincial budget, as well as there will be honorarium and project development support. We also have probably $150,000 already secured for the Drayton Valley location. So we're definitely chipping away at the needs. And this is, I don't think, a full quote yet, because once we find a space, we'll actually have somebody do submit the costing. So I think really what we're looking for is not only awareness, because everybody here knows a young person and interacts with young people in their lives, and being able to tell somebody, hey, you know what, I think you can go to Kingston. You don't have to be referred. You can just walk in. You can get all your services in one place, whether, you know, you want to see a sexual health nurse, or you want to talk to a counselor, or you want to be able to get a job. But also, I think really looking at with the degree of partnership that comes with the integrated youth service model and the implementation of it and the things that like all the partners that are around the table that Johanna spoke to. I think the opportunity to just kind of float all the boats a little bit higher by supporting the local hub is just something for consideration. We don't have a specific number or ask, just really thinking about what that might look like from your perspective. Some communities get operating grants from their municipalities, some get bridge funding, some get capital support, some just get like advertising and cross promotion. So it's really variable, but we just wanted to, share and have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit today about how it's going.
Well, thank you very much. Great job. We really appreciate you coming in and giving us an update and sharing the wonderful news of what you're doing in our community and everyone that you're helping. I will open it up for questions this morning. Councillor McGee.
Good morning. Good morning, Catherine. Welcome back to Drayton Valley. I've had the opportunity to sit with the kickstand on 2 or 3 occasions. So Loran and Hamda come and they do a presentation and they do a bang up job. It's bigger than what I ever thought it could be or is. Joanna, when you talk about 1,376 visits already, there was a day when many days the building wasn't even open. So the change is dramatic. The need is there. It's getting and bridging that budget that you're talking about here. The other thing that I found interesting was when the decision to find a group like the PCN to look after the organization, to take it under its wing, if I might, and say, here's what we can do. And so we need to work on the next steps together. No question about it. So I don't really have a question other than well done, and you need to be, continue to be in front of the politicians. And we know, Cindy, that our community is a wonderful community. We just have to find the sweet spots, right? So, and I know you're working on it. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councillor Clark?
So it's not super clear to me. I just wanted to kind of clarify is this place for kids? Because let me back up. So we hear as counselors all the time that, there's nothing for kids to do in this town, right? And we have lots to do. But so is this facility an organization, something where a kid can just go and be, just read a book, play their Switch, do what they want to do, don't have to participate in anything, just a place to be? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of part of the magic of it all, I find, is that not every youth that steps through our doors are currently going through crisis of any kind. Some of them have amazing families. They come in, they connect with our staff. They can hang out, participate in an organized program, or choose not to. Some come in to eat, some come in to sleep. And while they're there, they build the connections with the staff so that when they are going through something, because we all go through something at some point, they have the safe place and they know where to go for the help that they need. But yeah, a lot of our youth just come in for a safe place and the positive interactions that they have with the staff.
And now, it also wasn't clear to me, have you guys found a space that you want, or you have, or you're still looking?
We have some in mind.
Okay. I'm just curious. I just 5,500 square feet. It's not super common, not easy to come by, so that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're looking, Cindy, primarily with Johanna, they're looking at potential spaces. You're looking for something that's accessible, where young people feel comfortable going, that they can get to quite easily. Kind of that, the Edmonton location is going to be in West Edmonton Mall. So just really focusing on accessibility so that young people have the ability to walk in at that door. And most of the time, the first time, they won't do a whole lot. But pretty soon you start to find out that there's a lot underneath all that maybe their parents don't know, maybe their teachers don't know, or maybe it wasn't there when they first walked in, but they had that positive, welcoming experience. They were greeted and people were happy that they were there. So they find with the research, it just that really dials back their ability to ask for help a lot sooner when they do maybe start to feel like they are not doing so well and they don't really want to wake up tomorrow. Yeah.
Councillor Kamana?
Thank you. Good morning. I guess from the youth hub that we have already, like mentioned, we know that there's a great need in the community. Also, getting to that capital is a little bit of a challenge, but on top of that, finding those services that needed to run a center like this. Just for my understanding, is that where where Cindy comes into play and her organization, and how does that work out if we are expanding? How do we get those services that we need?
Each community goes through like a community engagement process, which Councillor McGee was speaking about, where we really bring together all the different experts in the youth space. So the library, family social services, Alberta Health Services, and really try to do a collective impact approach to populate kind of the most common reasons that a young person will walk in the door. So there's mental health and substance use services, as well as primary care services, which are actually quite well used by young people. Peer support services, and then those social services like help with employment or learning a new skill, studying, kind of whatever it is, maybe just sitting and reading a book. And then what happens is the funding that we disperse to the lead agency, which would be to the primary care network in Drayton Valley, they use that to operate the physical location so that everyone could work together. And then they also use those funds to hire their staff to work at the center, and then to fill in the gaps. Like if we find, hey, we don't have anybody who offers peer support, maybe we then hire a peer support worker so that we know if a young person comes in, they don't really want to talk to an adult, they actually have a peer that they can sit down with and have that conversation. So those budgets are really customized to meet the needs of the community. So the budget here and how the money is spent will really be customized by the Drayton Valley team versus somewhere where it would be quite different. So in Edmonton, we won't spend money probably on services. We'll spend money on rent and leasing costs because it's more expensive to do that. But we have lots of service providers that we can bring together to populate. And then in the rural communities, there might be some gaps in those that we'll try to fill in with our funding and with our network as well across the province.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so even in our current location where we are with the services that we're able to provide right now, like the Family Resource Network, their staff don't cost the youth hub any money to have them come in and provide the services. They don't have a ton of buy-in for their mandated age group that goes from 12 to 18. So they come to us and provide the services in-house with us. The hope, once we have the appropriate services for higher level needs, would then be the PCN would send in service providers who would operate in our hub, be a few days a week, a few days a month, those kind of things. So that's where those service providers are coming from.
Oh, okay. Sounds fantastic. Thank you.
Did you have one more question? Go ahead, Councillor Clark.
A follow-up question just popped into my head here. So are you guys pursuing any provincial funding at all? And is there much in terms of provincial funding for this sort of stuff? And even capital wise?
Capital seems to be a little harder to come by, but we do get a grant from the Ministry of Mental Health and Addiction at provincial level. So our provincial team receives funding that we then disperse into community and try to really create that network, not only so that a young person who moves from Drayton Valley to Grand Prairie can find the help that they need and go to the Kickstand Center, but also because we do joint data and evaluation across the province, so we can really paint the picture for young people about what's working and learn. So other than that, we apply for every grant that there is that may help in terms of funding operations within the communities. But there's not yet. We haven't had any luck with capital funding.
Okay. And the reason I ask is we do have a meeting, the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions is coming here. I can't remember when.
November 1st.
good.
So I mean, part of what we do is also advocate for community groups.
Yes.
So I mean, I think we'd be more than happy, speaking for everybody here, but we'd probably be more than happy to bring this to the table, I think, and chat with the minister about this.
It's great. That's a huge, I mean, I think that's a huge thing because it's a provincial program, but it's so owned, like the ownership is so community based and it's really for your young people. And so thank you for that. That would be great.
Certainly.
Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Well, fantastic job. Thank you for coming. And as Councillor Clark said, one of the things we can definitely do is that advocacy and, creating awareness for you. And then the other things that you talked about, we can take into consideration and have a discussion around. The minister's coming, and we have actually a couple of ministers that we're meeting with, so we can make sure that we're giving a shout out and telling all the wonderful things that you're doing in our community, and perhaps help with some grant funding as
Yes.
well.
Exactly. Thank
so
you.
much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And so that wraps it up for our delegations this morning. Next up, we have decision items, but before we move into those, I'll call a 10-minute break and then we will reconvene. We will reconvene our meeting back at 10:33 a.m. And before we jump into our decision items, is there any business arising from the delegations this morning? Did anybody have any questions? I know there's some advocacy efforts there on our part, and then we'll have some things to consider once we move into budget discussions. So other than that, I don't think that there's a lot happening that needs immediate attention out of the delegations this morning. We'll jump into our decision items, and we're going to move along to 9.2, which is Development Permit D24-028, Brazeau Foundation Edition Report, AIR 24-241 first, and that is Mr. Woodliff this morning. Good morning. Welcome again.
Thank you. The proposed development is located at the Shangri-La Housing Complex at 5208 47th Avenue. The applicants propose constructing a 3-floor, 27-unit apartment building that includes 21 studio and 6 one-bedroom apartments. Property is districted high-density residential and the purpose of the district is to provide for medium high-density development by allowing comprehensive multiple unit dwellings, developments and apartments. An apartment building is a permitted use in this district. There is a great demand for affordable seniors housing in Alberta due to an aging population, financial constraints on seniors, and the limited availability of units. Now, although it is a permitted use, they're requesting variances to density and parking. The density variance requested is, it's actually, I think it's 28% in the report, it's actually 17%. That was a typo. And the parking, just over 50% variance is requested. Administration is concerned that during peak hours, there may not be enough parking and that visitors, employees, and residents will park on the south arm of 47th. It's kind of odd, but there are 2 bits of 47th Avenue, one over here and then one over here. So I call this the south arm and that would be the north arm. So this is kind of the area that people are worried about parking because there might be overflow into this area. And this was also mentioned by the public in some of the comments. They talked about traffic congestion, road safety issues on 47th Avenue, and there's currently not enough parking. Now, I didn't realize that, I didn't understand what the comment relating to safety was when they were talking about it this morning, and I didn't realize she was talking about people backing out onto there. I'm just going to go ahead to that one. There it is there. So it's this is the parking here, the 10 spaces, and people will have to back out onto the road here. And that's what she was concerned about. I didn't realize it when she submitted the comments. That's what she was talking about for traffic safety. So I didn't really consider that. And that's something maybe our Public Works Department should have a look at. I don't know whether that's type of situation exists anywhere else in town, but normally there is some space to back out. rather than having to back out on the roadway there. And maybe the applicants can address that as well. Since there may be a parking issue, we're talking about a solution, perhaps installing signs saying parking by permit only, and then issuing the local residents parking passes or parking permits. And that would be back here. Yeah, that would be along this, from this intersection to that intersection, covering that area. So that would discourage people from the facility parking on that road, and that may allay some of the concerns that residents had about parking. And if there's any overflow, they could park on the north part of 47th up here instead. It's good. Nobody lives on this area. There's just an open field here and then another facility here. So I don't know if that's an option. The applicants might want to discuss that, but we thought that might be a better option for parking rather than on 47th. The application is also missing landscaping, grading, and recreation space plans. Those were required by the land use bylaw. This application is not complete. They're wanting to get the go-ahead before an application is complete. So in order to do that, we're adding conditions to the development permit to require those things before the development can go ahead. Administration's concluded that the need for affordable housing outweighs the potential negative impacts of the development. We think that the parking concerns can be addressed on 47th. And therefore, administration recommends that development permit DV 028 be approved with the suggested conditions. The conditions didn't make it onto the agenda, so they handed them out. And these are standard conditions that we would put on a development permit for a development this size. So if these is approved, these will be the conditions we'll put on the permit. So that's why I wanted to have council review those conditions to make sure that they're acceptable. And we added those 3 requirements in there for the, are we here? Yeah, 8, 9, and 10. 8 deals with the site grading plan. 9 with landscaping plan. We haven't received a detailed landscaping plan. And the land use bylaw also requires allotting 5% of the space for recreation. If in this case it requires that. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for that. So decision item 9.2 this morning is for, let me just go here to, where was your ask in this one? It's for a variance. Bring the development permit, direct administration to bring the or I guess it's with the suggested conditions is what you're looking for approval for this morning. Okay, and that's the ones that were just handed out to council just now. Okay, perfect. And was this package referred internally? You talked about Public Works and the 47th parking and things
Yes,
like
it
that?
was.
It was internally?
Yes.
And there was no comments that came back from Public Works?
I discussed it with Shelley last week. Unfortunately, she's away this week, so we didn't have a chance to really get into detail. But the condition I put on here is general. It says the Brazeau Foundation shall enter into an agreement with the town to address parking concerns on the south arm of 47th Avenue. And so I didn't put a specific condition, but I said just enter into an agreement to address parking concerns. So we'll have to work that out after.
And is there currently crosswalks
That's a good
on
question.
47th?
Okay.
Not in that location. Okay, so, okay. Okay, there's the trail that comes out there from the north and runs north-south right there. There's no marking there, okay.
Over here's a trail, sorry. There?
Sort of the north side of the street there, so the pathway intersects with the main sidewalk, which follows the curve road.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the application and the report is in front of you. I will open it up for questions for council. Councillor Clark?
I mean, the parking to me doesn't seem to be, to me, it's not a big issue. I mean, if we look for a comparable in town, if you look on Madison Avenue, south of the hospital, all those duplexes there, everybody backs out of there onto the road. And I would suggest that's a way busier road than this road, and probably more foot traffic as well. So I mean, from my perspective, I don't think that's a big issue. I think the number of parking stalls isn't an issue either. I think we heard before that, you know, I think there's something like 60% of the residents have vehicles or whatever that number was. It's a fraction of what is required generally in a typical building. It's not like this is a bunch of 25, 30-year-olds in this building, right? They're older folks and or disabled. So I think the parking to me is it's very manageable. And like I said, when we start looking at those comparables, this isn't a busy road compared to others in town, so not a concern to me.
Councillor Gamana?
Thank you. As you mentioned, Doug, you know, it's definitely a need in our community to have this kind of housing. I was just had a conversation with a resident, one of the multi units. When you go turn there, I believe it's Drayton Manor. That's the yeah. Not that one, the one next to it. So I guess their concern was that when you say permits and, you know, they get visitors and all that, and, you know, can they still park on the street because they have less parking on their premises as well, right? You know, they have parking for each unit right there. Yeah, exactly. But, you know, some of their visitors park on the street as well. And I believe that when we have this built, there will be some visitors coming to visit the seniors there or the residents as well. So yes, it is not a great concern, but, you know, if it get congested, it could get to a point that it will become an issue. So I'm not sure if issuing permits to park on a street, if that was your suggestion, if that's gonna work out or not, just because there's other buildings on the same street, and, you know, we need to consider their needs as well, right? So yeah, other than that, I agree that, you know, this is something that we need in our community. We just need to work with the organization to mitigate these concerns that the residents have, that we know we have, and we should move forward with it. Thank you.
So your question and concern more is for visitor parking than on site?
That's right. So if there's on-site parking as well as, you know, there's visitors as well as the other buildings which have
For all the-
residences, all of them, right? You know, it could get congested on 47th Street. I know when we were there for Thanksgiving, and there's lots of vehicles parked there. Visitors coming there, visiting and all that as well, right? So there will be times that it's going to be tight. So we need to have that leeway for accommodate all of that. Most of the time it may not be an issue, but sometimes it could be a greater issue.
Where currently is the visitor parking for all of that? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not tall enough.
Is it up there?
We have the little,
Okay, down, no, up there. There's a vertical, that's all.
Oh, that's
visitor
parking.
now.
that's all visitor parking now.
This is all visitor parking to the lot. Wishing Well, we also manage that. I believe that's the location you were talking about. The parking lot is here, so visitors here have to park along these streets here for Wishing Well, or up in this street here.
So there may be a need for an increase to the visitor parking now, adding this other complex to, I guess, accommodate all three.
Yeah, but with adding the new wing. That's where we're proposing the parking stalls in front there would be for the residents. So if they do have visitors, yes, they would need to park along 47th Ave primarily. So, but honestly, the amount of visitors, well, like you said, on Thanksgiving, yes, there were more people, but our current parking lot of 8 to 10 stalls, very rarely is that more than half full.
Did you have any other questions? That was it? Councillor McGee?
Dwayne, can you just come to the mic and make sure it's on? So,
Yeah,
because there may be people listening online and
Oh,
that's.
pardon me. Usually my voice is quite loud, so it
It's
usually
good in this
carries
room,
quite well.
whether it carries into the
Yeah.
other. But we talked briefly at break about clarifying the height of the building because it looks a little bit like it's giant.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the fact that general average age is 82 at the lodge, and so things are shifting around the driving piece. And there's the issue of sunlight was drawn into it. And lastly for me is this is so that you can go forward with an application. So nothing is etched in stone, as you said. So can you just clarify that?
Sure. Let's start with the last thing. This is just a proposal. The Brazeau Foundation is trying to take a step forward for the next 5 to 10 years because we realize that the seniors population is growing we have a waiting list of up to 15 people right now that we can't house. So they're required to stay in their home or whatever. So we want to go forward with this because we're dealing with the province. This is going to take 5 years possibly to get going. This isn't a 2025 project. So we're trying to propose this to get going. The advantage of this proposal is that it will connect to our existing building so that we can use staff that are currently in our building. We'd have to increase our staff slightly, but not as if we were building a new lodge. If we build a new lodge, that's all new staffing, whole new development, totally different project. Concern of parking, the majority of our residents, our average age is 82 years. The majority of our residents do not drive. We're able to house them in our current parking lot. We expanded that last couple of years to accommodate that. So there's very few of the lodge residents that would need to park anywhere else. This 11 spot would most likely cover for the 27 rooms that are available in the proposal. So there was another concern from the community about blocking sunlight. The architect drew this as if this big monster building was right there. Our proposal is a 3-story building on street level. Now, what doesn't show is that that's a significant hill right there. So the roof line will be the same as our current west wing. It will not be any taller than our current west wing. It's just we're putting a basement down into the hill and so that we can have more suites and also have more facilities inside more storage and mechanical rooms inside the building. So it won't look any taller. It won't be any taller than the current west wing that we have now. Some of the pictures that are in the development, it looks like this big, huge monster right on the street. But no, it's the same as the other one. And pardon me, Tom, I don't remember your other comment.
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
Yep.
If you have any other questions, please, yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions? Sure, Doug, go ahead.
I want to make a comment. This building faces north.
Correct.
So I can't see how it would block sunlight. It's in the summertime when the sun's going down, maybe a little bit, but other than that, it doesn't face that way.
Pardon me, I forgot about that point. Yes, you're totally correct. The sun is facing on this building, so it creates shadow behind it, but not out onto the street side.
Front of it. Thank you for that. Any further questions? Do we feel, Mr. Woodliff, that with the recommended development permit conditions that they fit within our current land use bylaw, but perhaps our proposed land use bylaw first reading and second and third that's coming up next, as well as our MDP that was approved? The new one, sorry.
The new, well, because they applied before that bylaw.
It falls
has
under
been
the-
approved, it falls under the old one. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? If there's no other questions, is there a member of council who'd like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor and Council, I would make a motion that council approve development permit DV 24-028 with suggested conditions as described in the attachment and outlined in report AIR-24-241.
Thank you very much for that. Any comment, question, debate on the motion? As was mentioned earlier, I think there's a need for housing in our community, particularly seniors housing. So it's a nice proposal. It's in a great location. And it comes with a recommended development permit conditions that I think that fit nicely into our land use bylaw and into the community. And if there's no further question, comment, or debate on the motion being that council approved development permit DV 24-028 with the suggested conditions as described in the attachment and outlined in report AIR 24-241, then I'll call the motion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much for that. Next up, we're going to circle back around to 9.1, which is the Town of Drayton Valley Land Use Bylaw. This is our first reading for 2024 03D by Mr. Peter Vanna. Good morning and welcome.
Morning, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here to present bylaw for first reading as we just kind of get to the presentation. There we go. So it's my pleasure to present the land use bylaw for first reading 2024-03-D. Just to kind of quickly go through for council the process and the intent of the bylaw. This exercise was a refresh of the land use bylaw, the existing land use bylaw. What we're trying to do as part of this exercise was to improve the way it looks, improve the way it reads, bring clarity to some sections in the bylaw so that it reads better, introduce more graphics into the bylaw, and to make sure that the new bylaw meets all the provincial requirements in terms of the Municipal Government Act. What the refresh is not intended to do, it's not intended to change land uses from the standpoint of if you were allowed to do something in the existing bylaw, this doesn't take away any of those zoning rights that you would have. The intent is also to try and reduce the amount of red tape in order to encourage development to occur, and to help facilitate that development and outline what the process is and what the requirements are for development. And as part of the decision-making process, making sure that there's more clarity and consistency in terms of how decisions are made as part of development applications. In terms of the process, we started this back in September of 2023. This was part of the municipal development plan refresh as well as the land use bylaw refresh. We started those together. We did the engagement, early engagement pieces together in October of 2023. Then through the course of the early part of this year, we crafted the bylaw, went through all the sections. We gained feedback on the drafts. We also conducted public open houses as part of that exercise. And then we've also, as part of this, also done referrals to the county. We did a legal review. We did internal reviews to make sure that we're covering off any concerns and items and how we can better improve the draft. And so we finally are at the final stage of the draft bylaw, and we're now at the formal adoption process. So the target from here is to get first reading today and then circulate it until the public hearing on December 11th. So just to quickly kind of highlight what is a land use bylaw anyway, right? It's there to implement the land use policies of council and the growth of the direction that you have through your municipal development plan. It divides the town into various districts or zones, such as residential, commercial, industrial, and so forth. It establishes standards for development and how it occurs and what's expected of development in order to have it proceed. And it's that balancing piece between trying to manage potential impacts of developments on existing areas in the community, and then how do you sort of balance that between the impacts and land uses that are there. In terms of the engagement process, it's gone through a fairly extensive engagement process. We started off with creating the web portal, same as the municipal development plan. As part of that, we've been continually updating that web portal with the latest drafts, with surveys for feedback, open house materials, et cetera. We've had public surveys relative to the land use bylaw to get people's feedback and input. Had the sessions with council as well as with administration. We've advertised the bylaw in the newspaper, in social media, the websites for the drop-in sessions in the open houses, as well as to try and get people to fill out the surveys. And then we've had 2 open house drop-in sessions, one December of last year and one in September 5th of this year. We've circulated the bylaw as mentioned through administration, a legal review, as well as to the county. And we're hoping to proceed to a public hearing in December. So part of this is, in terms of the bylaws, is how it looks and how it functions. We want to make sure that whoever's reading, whoever picks up the bylaw is able to sort of navigate a lot easier through the bylaw. And so there's sections at the beginning of the bylaw that help to explain how you actually work through the bylaw, what the process is, what's a complete application, what goes into applications, what's the process for processing applications, et cetera. And it's also structured in a way so that, you know, people, when they first pick up something, they kind of go, well, yeah, what's this bylaw? What's it all about? So that introduces that part of it. People then like to say, okay, well, what's the zoning on my property? So you get the zones that are up front and what land uses can go into those particular zones. And then in terms of what's permitted and what's discretionary. And then in terms of the process, in terms of how you actually fill out applications and process applications. In terms of how does it compare to the existing land use bylaw? So the existing bylaw has 6 sections in it. What we tried to do in this refresh was to try and, as I say, look at it a little more logically in terms of how a reader would kind of go through the bylaw. We've added sections in terms of you know, procedures for development and the application process and helping that. There were some inconsistencies. There are some inconsistencies with the existing bylaw in the sense it has partial sections and it has references to old bylaws that aren't there. So we've cleaned up that material. A good example is the sign regulations. We had some sign regulations, but not a lot of sign regulations because there was previously a sign bylaw, which no longer exists and so forth. So cleaning up that kind of materials that are in the existing bylaw. And so those are roughly the differences between that. So instead of, 6 sections, we now have 17 sections, but in terms of how they're sort of structured, they're broken out a little clearly in terms of what's in each section. If we compare the different land use districts that are in the existing bylaw compared to the proposed bylaw, what we've tried to do is in the residential areas, what we've tried to do is to clean that up and to try and reduce the number of districts. In some cases, we had development that doesn't really have a district that fits it. And so trying to make a decision on anything that would come forward is difficult. So what we've tried to do is we've created basically 4 residential districts. You've got a low, medium, and high residential districts. You've also got a manufactured home district. And so it's more encompassing. It is able to deal with the various types of developments, whether that be a bare land strata development, or whether that be a 0 lot line development, or whether that just be a standard, residential development, single family residential development. So it encompasses all of those possibilities. The other thing that we did was we looked at the commercial districts and we tried to clean up the commercial districts. So we had some issues whereby, there's some references to highway commercial, yet we hadn't really zoned anything for highway commercial. We had a general commercial district that allowed some things, but it interplayed with the light industrial district. So what we've tried to do is, as we were kind of going through this bylaw review, we ground proofed on the ground what's there, what does it look like, how does it fit, what kind of a district should it be in, to make sure that we're not inhibiting the development that's there currently, but making sure that we can have further development in that area. So what we did was we created that C business district that encompasses some light industrial, some general commercial, some highway commercial within it. We, in the downtown area, well, we've taken the downtown area as defined, and I'll show you on the map, had a whole bunch of different districts in it, a whole bunch of different kind of land uses. But in essence, when you look at the downtown area, when you look at the form and character of what the downtown is, we've encompassed that into a downtown district and allowed for all those uses to be in there and allow it to, to be able to grow within that type of district. On the industrial side, well, we noticed that a lot of the stuff that was zoned for light industrial was in fact really a general or a medium industrial. So we've created that district. And then we've got a heavy industrial. So we've cleaned up the heavy industrial district and where that is. In some cases, we had uses that were improperly districted in the current bylaw. For example, we've got some areas that are actually heavy industrial that are zoned for commercial, right? So how can that business survive, or how can that business operate in its current environment? This cleans that up. And then the other area that we looked at was all the public uses. So whether that be public recreation or for parks and recreation, environmental reserve areas, and provide better definition for those areas and how they're structured. As well, the last point I wanted to make about the districts was that the current bylaw has a number of areas that are direct control. The problem with direct control is that it comes to council for decisions when it's in direct control. The problem is a direct control is supposed to give council some guidance in terms of what's expected on this. You only make something direct control when it's special and doesn't fit into a regular district. And for some reason, the existing bylaw has a bunch of stuff that's direct control, yet who knows what's expected of that. So what we've done is we've cleaned that up. We've either given something a regular zoning because it fits into a regular zoning, or if it's direct control, we've written the rules and the regulations around what's expected in that direct control. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of what the land use map looks like. As you can see, as I pointed out, the downtown area That's that purplish color. That is the downtown area. So you can see that it is now better defined. The commercial area is along the highway, along 50th Street, 50th Avenue areas as defined in the municipal development plan. So it does line up with the municipal development plan. And the industrial areas are, further south and further to the west. And so looking out at the land use bylaw map, you can see that where the districts are, and the fact that we do actually have a lot of urban reserve areas in gray for future development at some point in time. And so the recommendation coming out of today in the report is that council would give bylaw 2024-3-D first reading as part of the report. And so with that, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions for clarification.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. It looks fantastic. Nice to see that the document is here in draft form, and I will open it up for questions this morning. Councilor Kamana?
Thank you, and thank you for this detailed presentation. So just thinking through this, of course, now we've outlined the zoning and areas that you mentioned there. Per se, just for my understanding, let's take DB land, and now we've designated something there, and I believe that says commercial neighborhood or commercial. If my eyesight is right, but my point is that if in the future we get a developer who would like to do something else with that, and I believe we still have that process of coming back to the council, and we could relook at the zoning at that point.
Sure. So, Madam Mayor, to answer that question, so the DB lands are currently zoned direct control. That was done last year, and the bylaw as proposed continues to have that as direct control. All we've done is, give a little more guidance in the direct control to council in terms of what can be expected on that. But it says, in essence, it hasn't changed. As well, the old school site, which is, when we had that larger discussion about what the area around there is, we've made it part of the downtown area, which allows for a number of different uses. That flexibility for council and for the developer, whoever comes forward with it, to put development on that land. So we've tried to make it easier for development to occur in that area.
No, thank you for that. Maybe I took the wrong land parcel then. If something per se is designated commercial business now, but somebody wanted to put a manufacturing facility instead in that building, there is a process that it will come to council, and then we could relook at that designation.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a process. So what's outlined in the proposed bylaw now that we didn't have before was, how do you fill out the application for development permit? How do you, if you want to redistrict something to something else, how do you do that? So here's a process for how you actually redistrict something. So what we've tried to do is really make it user friendly in order to make it clear to people, because you get that a lot, right? People come in and say, well, what's the process, right? And so here in the bylaw, we've outlined here's what the process is to make it easier for people to do that. The other thing that we've done in the districts themselves is we've expanded the list of uses, permitted uses that are in the districts. So that, because one of the things I noticed that going through the existing districts, that it didn't have a lot of uses in it, or it was missing some uses and didn't provide that flexibility that, here's similar uses that should be in the district. So those have been added into the individual districts as well.
Great. Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Councillor Evans?
Peter, can you just explain to me quickly the difference between light industrial, which is now commercial, correct? And the medium industrial, how do we draw the line between those two?
Yeah, so one of the observations that I had in just looking at the properties as you're going through it, you know, the light industrial tends to be properties that, let's say, it might have equipment parked around the back. A lot of what goes on, whether it's packaging, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's whatever it is actually inside the building. The impacts of that business don't go beyond the property line. Whereas when you get into the medium industrial, you may have activities that are happening in the yard, which would have like noise, dust, odor, those type of, industrial activities that happen up to the boundary line of the property. Heavy industrial would be businesses that actually then have an impact beyond the property line that have to be considered.
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I just have the one question about all that urban reserve. A lot of that is, for instance, south of Highway 22, there are dwellings on those properties. Are those still considered urban reserve, or are those considered acreage zone?
Right. So as stated, we haven't taken away any zoning rights that are there that somebody would have today. So you may have a dwelling that's on an urban reserve today. That still continues to happen. It's still allowed as a discretionary use that can continue on. Those, in some areas, we do have parcels that are out there that are actually well, I call them country residential, but they're they're residential acreages, and they continue to be zoned. We haven't changed the zoning on those.
Any other questions? So for myself, the document looks really good. I like how you cleaned it up. The definitions are very clear. I see you've added a few unique or I guess new definitions and terms that I haven't seen, like farm, vacation home, cultural facilities, cottage industry, things like that. That I guess we're evolving and times are changing. So these are additions to land use bylaws as we see new and unique development and I guess businesses and things that are happening now. One of them is artisan shop that I noticed in here. Could you tell me a little bit about how an artisan shop would be different than a retail shop?
So you may end up where, and certainly in, well, actually all over Alberta, you get people that are craftsmen, right? So they may do pottery, they may do, stained glass, they may do whatever, right? And so what we're trying to do is facilitate that to actually happen. Just not that long ago, I was touring a cousin from England, and we actually took him through the back roads along, the Cowboy Trail. And so you run into a lot of these types of businesses that are in a rural setting that you kind of go, there's no reason why it shouldn't exist. I mean, from an economic development perspective, you want to encourage that kind of thing to happen. And in terms of impact on adjacent properties, it doesn't really have an impact. Yet it provides a means of economic viability for people that live in these areas. So that, there's a bit of that going on. And that's different from somebody that may set up a shop, and you may end up setting up a shop in, let's say, whether it's the downtown area or somewhere else, where in fact we provide for that as well, where somebody may do, let's say, pottery on the main floor, but they may live above the building, right? And so there's, why wouldn't you allow, or why wouldn't you make provision for that as well?
Perfect, yeah. And I can think of a few businesses in town that kind of fit. So I guess my question would be too, so then when an applicant comes in, that would be the job of our development officer that would walk through where their business would fit in the land use bylaw, whether it would be the retail or the artisan. It just gives, I think, a broader and a wider range of opportunity there for sure.
That's right. And I think one of the points that also to add to this is that, so in the definitions, there are term definitions, which are, what's a setback, what's a height, or, that type of thing, which are very definitive. And then you've got the land uses. And so the definitions are actually broken out into two different pieces, right? But all in that section.
Yeah, that's perfect. So just talking a little bit about our residential, areas. When we look at our residential low, I see that there is in permitted is the manufactured homes are permitted. And then I think, is it modulars aren't? I can't remember. Could you just speak to that a little bit? I know that council in the past has had conversations around manufactured homes unless grandfathered in to remain in the manufactured homes park, where I see they're kind of sporadically located out throughout the community. But when you look at the residential low, it takes up quite a bit of the entire community there.
So the one thing, my observations in driving around the community and getting to know it is we do have some subdivisions that are, that have manufactured homes on them that are on regular, town lots and serviced regularly like a town, any town property, single family type of property. And then we have other areas where we have manufactured homes that are sort of slotted into existing single detached dwelling areas, right? So we have a real mix. So, to spot zone each one of these kind of things it's kind of like overkill, right? And it becomes difficult from a standpoint of accuracy and that type of thing. So creating the low density area, these are all low density. The difference between is that if you have a manufactured home and manufactured being defined under the building code, it has a Z designation on it, then you're allowed to, if it's there today, you're allowed to keep it there and you're allowed to replace it if it's there, right? Or whereas in terms of introducing it to new areas, that type of thing, you can't introduce it into a new area, right? It would have to be a stick-built kind of home or a modular home that's put onto the property.
So if there's a stick build or a modular that's there now, you can't tear down the stick build and put a manufactured home.
That's correct.
In the residential low areas.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And that's it for me. Fantastic job. Today, we're looking at giving first reading to the new land use bylaw, and then we'll have a public hearing and time for other input and everything. So is there a member of council that would like to make a motion for first reading today? Councilor Sheriff?
I'll make a motion that council give land use bylaw 2024-03-D first reading as defined in report AIR 24242.
Thank you very much for that. Any comment, question, debate on the motion? So there's a motion on the floor to give first reading to land use bylaw 2024-03. I'll now call the motion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Vanna. And next up on the decision items is 9.3, which is the appointment of municipal assessor. Mr. Tweedle. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. So today I'll be presenting the appointment of the municipal assessor. So a municipal assessor is responsible for assessing the value of properties located within the municipality. They take calls from the public regarding assessment, and every municipality is required to appoint an assessor. Pursuant to section 284.2 subsection 1 of the MGA, a municipality must appoint a person having the qualifications set out in the regulations to the position of the designated officer to carry out the functions, duties, and powers of a municipal assessor under this act. So administration recommend that council appoint Travis Horn as the assessor for the town of Drayton Valley pursuant to section 284.2 subsection 1 of the MGA per report AIR 24240.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions this morning for Mr. Tweedle? Councillor Gamana?
Thank you. I guess I asked that question last time too. So we had the same assessor for
Yeah, so
years.
unfortunately, near the end of September, Dan Kanuka sadly passed away.
Oh, okay.
So Travis Horn is with the same company. He's the president of Municipal Assessment Services Group. So it'd just be transferring the appointment from Dan to Travis.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, thank you for that.
Thank you very much for that, and condolences to Dan and his family. It's very sad to hear that news. We didn't know that, sorry. The recommendation this morning is that council appoint Travis Horn as the assessor for the town of Drayton Valley. If there's no other questions for Connor this morning, is there a member of council who'd like to make a motion? Councillor Clark, sure.
Yes, I will make the motion that council appoint Travis Horn as the assessor for the town of Drayton Valley pursuant to section 284.2 subsection 1 of the MGA per report AIR 24-240.
Thank you very much for that. Any comment, question, debate on the motion? I'll call the motion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. That was easy, right?
Thank you. You betcha.
Moving along the agenda, 9.4, Ms. Lola Strand, Winter Emergency Response Funding. And we are on page, it's a very thick agenda, just to bring everybody up to speed, we're on page 304. A lot of shuffling through the pages this morning to figure out where we are.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Okay, so I am here with news in regards to our standing agreement with the Ministry of Community and Social Services that provides operational funding for the provision of emergency shelter. This funding allows us to operate the former community MAP program for the last 2 years. It has covered the cost for the operation of the shelter pods. And since that funding allocated has been more than we require to meet our obligation with the RDN to operate the shelter pods for that 5-year period, this grant has also supported rent and some other operational costs needed to operate the Warm Heart Center. So this is timely because our current standing agreement runs from May 23rd, 2023 to October 31st, 2024. While the current standing agreement stretched for 1 year, moving forward, we will be looking at a change with that 6-month term. So the funding that will be available is the Winter Emergency Response Funding, which is available November 1st to April 30th, which is the agreement that we're looking at now. While we don't have a signed agreement as of yet, I do have confirmation that we do have approval for the $90,000 that was earmarked for Drayton Valley, as well as an additional $50,000. An extra amount of up to $10,000 was requested. However, I have, since writing this report, received confirmation that that extra $10,000 has not been approved. So while the government of Alberta recognizes that the shelter pod program is operated as an unsupervised service since opening in 2022, they have requested that security be on site to reduce the risk of any potential situations where the government of Alberta may be liable as the funders. Therefore, $50,000 was granted to cover the cost of providing security at the shelter pods during this first 6-month term. So security for the pods will be facilitated in-house under the supervision of our enforcement services and become a part of the operating agreement with the pod operators, Humans Helping Humans Housing Foundation. The number of hours security will be on site and the role security will play will largely be dependent on the expectations of the province, but will also be determined based on feedback from Humans Helping Humans as well. So the requirement of the grant is daily reporting by the Town of Drayton Valley Community Services staff. Therefore, $6,387 has been allocated from the $90,000 grant for staff wages. That leaves $83,613 for operations support for the programs. Humans Helping Humans Housing Foundation has forecasted the following costs to operate the shelter pods for the period November 1st, 2024 to April 30th, 2025. Just over $25,000 for manager wages, some janitorial maintenance costs of $18,900, power $2,000, porta potty rental just over $1,000, insurance just over $1,500, fire monitoring about just over $1,600 for 6 months, maintenance and contingency fund. They're requesting $3,000. That's for those unexpected larger maintenance requirements. And of course, the answering service that does the check-ins, just over $8,000. So their total request is $61,727. That leaves $21,886 remaining. The Drayton Valley and Area Unsheltered Society, which is the former HPRT, the Homeless and Poverty Reduction Team, has requested continued support for the operation of the Warming Heart Center to be allocated from the remainder of the grant as follows. They're looking for $20,000 for rent, $4,500 for power, insurance $2,000, janitorial and PPE $1,200, garbage disposal $600, and office supplies $600, totaling $28,900. So that leaves us with a grant shortfall because that extra $10,000 wasn't approved. That'll leave us with a shortfall of about $7,014. That includes the $90,000 that we started with, minus the $6,387 for staff wages, for reporting, minus the $61,727 for Humans Helping Humans, and then the $28,900 for the Warming Heart Center. So both the shelter pods and the Warming Heart Centers continue to be well utilized by individuals experiencing homelessness in the community. The shelter pods continue to operate 7 days per week as per the expectation of the government of Alberta, only closing under circumstances beyond their control. For example, they had to close one night because the porta potties were out of order. Although some individuals are banned from using the shelter pods, only those who have caused major damage or have threatened the safety of staff or other users are banned for a longer period of time. As per the attached proposal, the intent is that the Warming Heart Center continues to operate their 5 days per week, Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they are requesting an official closure time of 4 weeks per year due to the lack of volunteers. While the province does expect closures to be reported, the biggest priority is that the overnight shelter is the one that's open and available every night. There are more individuals banned from the Warming Heart Center than the pods. Many are the same individuals. This is somewhat understandable as volunteers have more face-to-face interaction over at the Warming Heart Center and experience more of that threatening behavior. FCSS continues to work with the Warming Heart Center to provide training opportunities that will equip volunteers with more tools to handle those types of situations safely. The Warming Heart Center provides space where our community outreach worker can also meet with individuals, and most recently has begun to host AA meetings in their facility. So the financial implications, this grant will cover all the costs related to the operations of the shelter pods for the period November 1st, 2024 to April 30th, 2025, which will fulfill the municipality's obligation to operate the shelter pods to the federal government. During the August 16th meeting of council last year, there was a resolution passed by council that allocated $40,000 from the $48,000 that was allocated in the 2023 municipal operating budget that was not expended, and to grant it to the Homelessness and Poverty Reduction Society for the rent for the Warming Heart Center should the provincial grant funding cease to exist. This winter emergency grant will cover the rent, the $20,000 obligation the council did make. Therefore, the $48,000 that was not expended still remains, giving council the option to pay the $7,014 shortfall over and above the request of the operational funding. Both organizations have been notified that they will be asked to submit a proposal again for beginning the period May 1st, 2025 to October 31st, 2025. The hope is that that request for us to submit a proposal to the province will come early in the new year. So the recommendation is that council approves the funding request from the Humans Helping Humans Housing Foundation for $61,727, and the Deviant Area Unsheltered Society for $28,900, and for the Town of Drayton Valley Grant Report requirement for $6,387, totaling $97,014, with $90,000 to be paid by the Government of Alberta Winter Emergency Response Grant funding, and the $7,014 to be paid from the funding that council carried forward contingent that the requirements of the government of Alberta requirements are being met.
Thank you very much for your report. Any questions for Ms. Pham this morning? Councillor Sheriffs?
I just have a question, regarding the money, like the 61,000 and 28,000. Do you have numbers for 2023? Has there been significant increase? in the
There's
fees?
been a little bit of an increase. There has been a little bit of an increase.
In
but,
both?
Yeah, in both, I would say. Yeah, in both. However, so last year, we ended up with a little bit of a surplus, which we're currently spending right now. We need to make a switch over at the shelter pods with the check-in service. So we're using that surplus funding from this year's grant to do that. The difference being this year is we won't have a surplus. So with the exception of that $3,000 contingency fund, we won't have a surplus to do anything with. So there's still enough funding. It's just not going to leave us anything extra.
Mhm. Has there been more people arriving in Drayton Valley that need these services? Or, coming out of Drayton Valley that are becoming unhoused or?
I wouldn't say that there's more people arriving to Drayton Valley. There have been a few. We're certainly trying to, through our community outreach worker now and our FCSS office, we're trying to support those people to get back to where their natural supports are. Unfortunately, we're seeing a trend now where there's more people using the services for a local.
Okay, because I've heard that there's been some people brought here because of the services that we offer, and that's why I was wondering if that's why maybe the costs are going a little bit higher, if we're doing something about it, trying to get them back to their community.
Yeah, we try to do that, and there have been some rumors sort of going around as well as that our CMP have been dropping people off from other communities. I did confirm with our staff sergeant that that's not the case. There have been a couple of occasions where people from other communities have ended up staying in the shelter pods because like there was a stolen vehicle and the driver got charged and the passenger didn't. So she stayed in the shelter pods, and like there's been a couple of occasions like that. But yeah, there's lots of rumors going around. I can't say that there's never someone from another community here, but we do our best because, I mean, people in every circumstance need their own natural supports around them. So we do our best to try to connect them back to them and get them back to their own communities.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor McGee?
Lola, how do you report to the government of Alberta? What do you need to provide for them in order for them to continue this grant? And I ask that question because when I think of bang for the buck, if you were to put some numbers together on how and who and what, and we help for this small amount of funding, quite frankly, they would realize that that's the best in a smaller community that you could do. So do you have a report that you annually, I know you do, but I just need to know a little bit of how you do that.
We actually have to report daily. There's not an annual report, it's a daily report. So that's where that 1 day per week reporting requirement comes in. We're required to report, there's a live site that we report on every day that reports stats on numbers specifically for the shelter pods. The requirement is a daily report of the next morning by 10 o'clock, by 10 a.m. We need to report how many folks were in the pods the night before. The Warming Heart Center, we do report once a month to them. Any situation that requires RCMP or emergency services response, we need to report within like the same 24-hour period. And plus I have monthly reporting meetings with them on a face-to-face meeting. So, and yeah, it is a really good bang for the buck, for sure. And I think that they recognize that.
Well, and one of the things that people will often ask elected officials or anybody that they meet at the A&W, how many people actually use the facility? And I don't have an answer for that. But the government of Alberta has an answer to that.
They do.
Is there a way that we could understand that, like, if there's 17 or 20 people using the pods nightly, and as it gets colder, that either increases or decreases, do we have an average number?
Yeah, so since we opened, I want to say it's 246 unique individuals have used the shelter pods. So that's in that 2-year period. Some have only used it one time. I think about 84 people have only used it one time. So their need is, I mean, we don't ask those questions. So it could be domestic abuse. It could be they got stranded here. Who knows why someone might need to use the shelter pod one time. And there's, I'm not sure about the number, but there's definitely a group of individuals that are unsheltered most of the time that have used the shelter pods and the Harpering Heart Center almost every day.
Okay, so to tie it back in then, how many people might we have at the landfill that shelter themselves? And how many people would be staying in the pods? And how many people are Warming Hearts taking care of every day? Is there, can we put a box around that? Is there something that we could?
I can't speak to how many people are currently out at the landfill right now because of sort of lack of capacity with our enforcement services. We haven't had the outreach worker out at the landfill as much as we had hoped. So I can't speak to how many people are out there currently. The shelter pods are typically near full, if not full. Not every pod has 2 people in, but usually each pod has at least 1 person staying. Warming Heart Center, I think they're looking at anywhere from 20 to 25 or 30 every day.
Okay, and to that point of the outreach worker, we have a grant for that outreach worker that's lasting 1 year. Did we also get a grant for a navigator, or is that the same person?
That's the same person.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the person that might go out with one of our CPOs to just say, I'm here. Because I'm talking to the landfill or Warming Hearts. That's their role.
Yeah, that's her. Plus, she's also going to start going out with RCMP now as well. So that's a federal grant that pays her wages.
Okay, can we have access to that, your GOA reports? Monthly? Can you condense it and put it into a month thing for us? Just
Yeah, we can do that. We can provide you with some monthly stats. Absolutely.
Yes, that'd be fantastic.
I think it'd be helpful because it's difficult sometimes if you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Councilor Camana?
Thank you. Lola, you talked about the new requirement for security from the province. 50,000 doesn't seem a lot when it comes to a whole year of security for
6 months.
6 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
6 months.
Even that, what we don't know what kind of requirements that they are asking from us. Would you know, or?
So it's going to be largely based on funding as well. So currently, Cody Rothling from Enforcement Services is having a look to see what we can get for $50,000. The more hours that the shelter pods can be supervised, I think the better in their eyes. I guess we'll have to see how much it costs.
Right,
See how
yeah.
much we can get. But for sure, we want to see during that opening check-in period, for sure, we want to see a security person there because that's going to help some of the ongoing issues that Humans Helping Humans is having with people trying to check in who are banned and, then they get banned again because they're trying to check in while banned. So during that check-in time for sure. And then during the morning period, whenever they have to get up and leave. So those 2 periods for sure, with perhaps a break in security during the nighttime when they're sleeping.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question about, so currently, how do we handle the band? I guess, unsheltered people, they are coming, and is that somebody already there now, and, or they just come and try to check in through the?
They come and try to check in.
Okay.
And sometimes it's noted in the check-in process, and sometimes it's just seen on security, or sometimes just the janitorial staff comes in the morning and finds somebody in a pod that's banned. And the result of that is then it extends their ban. So we're hoping that by having someone there during that check-in period, if someone's banned, they're gonna not get in and do their, few days or whatever, and not end up extending that ban because they were staying when they shouldn't have been.
Okay. Regarding the outreach worker that Tom mentioned as well, I've seen some new faces around. Maybe they're from here, maybe they're not, but are we reaching out to those new faces? And I now trying to find out if they are from around here or not. And if not, in my opinion, probably they are here for some reason, but maybe there's more supports where they came from.
Absolutely.
Right? So do
Absolutely.
we kind of going through that process, just for my understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, if they can be near their natural supports, that's the best for the individual. So that's what we try to do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Evans?
So Lola, we've got the janitors running into people who are banned at times. And the CPOs will help with security during the check-in times mostly, from what I understood, when they're running in there. I'm just curious as to what so we also have a manager there for 25,000 and change. Can you tell me what their time commitment is, or when they're on site at the pods, or what exactly the manager's role is there?
So the Humans Helping Humans manager wages?
Yeah.
That's Humans Helping Humans staff. So
So that's administrating this?
yes, administering the pod program. She's, paying the bills. She's, doing all the administrative pieces of managing the shelter pods.
Okay. So 25,000 a year to pay the bill. She doesn't have any hands-on management on site.
No, she's not on site, but she, like I said, if there's something needs to be repaired, if
She'll phone somebody.
she'll phone somebody, she's in direct communication with the janitorial staff each day. She's sort of the go-between to just make sure that everything is running smoothly over there.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a couple questions. I know the recommendation coming out today is option number 1. And then there's $7,000 to be paid from the funding that was carried forward. So the question around that is, I do have a concern with that being, last year there was a report that came back to council from the pods due to repairs and damages that were done to a couple of the pods. So I think with that recommendation, my concern would be that there wouldn't be money being held back again this year, for if there was unexpected circumstances that happened and things like that. I feel if there was that held back or a percentage of money, then we could deal with them as they come, because I'm not sure how the funding would be distributed, whether it's all at once, or is it monthly as the reports come back in?
It's quarterly.
It's quarterly.
Yeah.
So for both the
Yes.
pods and warming, okay, so it's done quarterly. So yeah, I guess that would be my concern, is that with the recommendation coming from administration, that there wouldn't be that little bit of holdback money for that unforeseen. And also when it comes to Warming Hearts, just wondering if, because they're on a monthly reporting cycle where the pods are daily, right?
Yeah.
So I just wonder if there couldn't be a condition put on the funding with Warming Hearts to find solutions with the individuals that are banned. I know that's one of the things that we hear a lot in the community. We hear from the RCMP, we hear from everyone that there is maybe 5 or 6 individuals that are, reoccurring and coming up. And those are probably the individuals that need the greatest amount of intervention and resources that are accessible. So just wondering if there couldn't be a condition and a conversation had with Warming Hearts to allow these individuals to come back in, even if it's on a basis of they're escorted with the security, now that we have funding for the security officer, if they couldn't come in and warm up, get something to eat. And then perhaps that's where the community outreach worker could also be making sure that they're accessing those resources, because the whole thing of us doing this is to provide those resources so we can try to get these individuals out of the situation that they're in. So right now, if they're banned and they can't go here, they can't go there, they can't go anywhere, and we're not really being much service to them. So there would be that question. And then also if there could be, like I'm more leaning towards option number 3, but even if there could be a little bit of extra funding, perhaps going towards the community outreach position for cases like this as well.
So we wouldn't be able to use this funding to go
for
towards
that?
the community outreach position because this is specifically funding for shelter. So we wouldn't be able to do that. I just want to note also that should council choose to go ahead and fund the extra 7,000, there was $40,000 carried forward. So should something happen, there's still that $40,000 that's been allocated out of our own budget. Should something urgent happen, or repair happen, or whatever that we don't have the funding for.
I just know these conversations come up last year and it was kind of like, if we should have, or next year we're going to do this. So I think that's where my concerns come up. Did you have a question, Mr. Van Claveren?
Thank you for that, Chair. So not just a question, as an additional information. So basically the relationship, of course, we have with the outreach worker, we're still, let's say, solidifying that, of course, what the task and what the opportunities are. So yes, working with Warming Hearts solidifies that reaching out to our vulnerable people, especially also those people that are banned for a longer period of time. So that is in development, of course, on how to do that and how to reach out to those people. So when you mentioned a condition, we are working on that, of course, reaching out to those people, and Vanessa is, let's say, strengthening that. And when we have that security in place, because that falls under us as let's say the dollars to spend on and regulate that, that gives us the opportunity, of course, in cases that's needed, to have that security over there as well, when that interaction or let's say intervention would happen with those people that are, let's say, now banned or have a hard time getting into the Warming Hearts.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And then since we do have a little bit more money that is being carried over, do you think that that's a conversation when Minister Williams comes in a couple weeks to say, since we do have this community outreach navigator position, that we couldn't use some of these funds towards that? I know when you talk about that this is specific to shelter, when we look here at, manager wages, janitorial office, like we look at all of that supports. So my question would be, is this not a service that supports that, right?
So Minister Nixon would be the minister.
Minister Nixon would be the one?
Would be the
So
one
he'll
to
be
talk to, yeah.
hopefully coming along. Okay,
Yes,
wonderful.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions, do you have another question? I'll go to Councillor Sheriffs first. I don't think you've asked.
I just have a question. What's fire monitoring for $1,600?
That's the automatic, if the pods catch on fire, it goes to the alarm company and notifies the fire department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Evans, did you have an additional question? Or are you wanting to make a motion?
Additional question, if I may. That 40,000 that we budgeted for, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that not a commitment that needed to be made to receive funding for the shelter pods? Like
Yeah, so-
they needed a commitment from us that we would backstop it to get the funding.
That's correct. So whenever we received the capital funding for the shelter pods from the RDN, the federal government, we were required to make a commitment that we would operate for 5 years. At the time, we thought operating costs would be $48,000, not actually running them. That was our projection. So council did make a motion to allocate $48,000 every year. We haven't used that so far. So then last year in 2023, when the Warming Hearts or the HPRT came in, they were wanting to sign that 2-year lease agreement. So council made the motion to use 40,000 of that 48,000 that had been allocated to go towards rent should the provincial funding not be available this year, so that they could go ahead and sign their 2-year lease agreement.
Okay, so now that 40,000 is in play, it's not necessarily just a
Right.
backup. We're starting to use that and spend it on our house. And
Yeah,
that could be, continue to increase.
Yeah. We haven't used
Right.
any of it.
And that was the intent, was it not? To have it there to meet our requirements so we could get the grant funding,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
And now we are using it. Don't you want 7,000 out of that?
That is a recommendation. However, council could choose to not use any of it. And I would recommend that the shelter pods get the funding that they require, because that's where the obligation really lies.
Right.
And the extra funding then can support the Warming Heart Center.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on that 40,000, because again, I thought it was just,
Yeah.
okay, if the funding doesn't come through, it's there.
Yeah.
So we'll meet that obligation. And I would just hate to see that, oh, we've got this 40,000 now as part of our budget. It's not just a backstop, but now it's part of the operating budget for these things. And again, we run into budget creep there, and before you know it, we're allocating larger chunks of it to make up the difference. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and thank you for the question, Councillor Evans. I was under the assumption that it was an extra 40,000, but you're right. When the motion came to council a couple of years ago, it was the motion was to allocate the dollars contingent on the grant funding, and that's where I think we were very clear, is we didn't want to be using taxpayers' dollars to fund this, that if it came from funding provincially or federally, then that would be an easy way to speak to the community into that on that. So if we are using the 7,000 with the recommendation today, then it would be going into that motion. So to keep that in mind, that could continue, and there could be year after year and ask after ask. So, yeah. Councillor Gamana, did you have a question?
No, I'm just going to make a motion.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to make a motion that council approves the funding request from Human Helping Humans Housing Foundation for 61,727, and for the Town of Drayton Valley grant report requirement of for 6,387, and approve 21,866 of the 28,900 requests from the DV area unsheltered society, totaling 90,000, and to be paid from the government of Alberta into emergency response grant funding contingent that the requirements of the GA are being met. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the motion. Any comment, question, debate on the motion? Number 3. That. Oh, no, number 3. Number 3, yeah. Yeah, number 3. So thank you very much for that, Councillor Gamana. That's a motion that I can definitely support. I think that my concern is that exactly what Councillor Evans had brought up. And then also, I think that the money, if it ever is going to be used, should be there in case there's an unforeseen circumstance or an emergency, right? I think that we need to try to work within the money that's allocated from the government of Alberta, and anything else when it comes to addictions and mental health. I think that's why we have 2 ministers coming that we need to see. If there's a new ministry, that if there's additional dollars there that supports those wraparound services for this, then I think that's where we need to be advocating and pushing for, definitely. So there is a motion on the floor, and that motion is option number 3, that council approve the funding request for Humans Helping Humans for the 61,727 and the Town of Drayton Valley grant report requirement for 6,387, and approve the 21,866 of the 28,900 request from the Drayton Valley and Area Unsheltered Society for a total of $90,000 to be paid from the Government of Alberta Winter Emergency Response Grant Funding Program. I'll now call the motion. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that. I think what we'll do before we get into the other decision, we have a couple more, is break for lunch, and then we'll reconvene at just before 1 o'clock, jumping back into our decision items. We have two more decision items, 9.5, 9.6, department and council reports, and then we have one closed session as well. And then after that, we have our organizational meeting. Go ahead, Hans.
Thank you, Mayor. Just making sure that, so when it was posted that 1 o'clock would be the organizational meeting, that you are changing the times
Okay.
based on this.
So I wonder if how we could do that then. Do we have to temporarily adjourn the meeting to move into our organizational meeting at 1 o'clock? So I can do a temporary adjournment? So then what I'll do is I will temporarily adjourn the meeting at 11:57. At 1 o'clock, we will come back in for our organizational committee meeting. And then once that is, we'll have two motions coming out of that. Once we're wrapped up with that, then we'll jump back into our regular meeting of council.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks, Hans, for that. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome back, everyone. We will call our organizational meeting to order at 1:06 p.m. We have two decision items. The first decision item up this morning, 2.1, is the committee appointments for council for the 2024-2025 calendar year. And we've already had a good conversation about where some of the councillors would like to be appointed and committees that they want to sit on. I'm just going to bring it up. We'll go through each committee as they come. So the first up is the Brazeau Seniors Foundation, and Councillor McGee has elected himself to sit on this. Well, okay, no, there was a discussion around. Councillor McGee would love to sit on this. I don't think anyone opposed that. We do need a council alternate. Oh, no, we don't, because they have different terms of references for this committee. So if everyone's okay with that, we're good with this one. Okay, next up is Drayton Valley and District Chamber of Commerce. We do not have council representation there. I think in their terms of reference that they do need a councillor to be appointed to this. Is that correct, Mr. Von Claveren, or can someone from administration? I know a lot of the committees, the terms of reference is for a councillor, and I couldn't find anything on the chamber unless someone from council. I know there was discussion that we were thinking from economic development perspective that it would make more sense to have someone from administration, either Kundi or Marie Lynn be sitting on this. I'm not sure. Monica, I believe.
So thank you for that. So if it's not at this moment clear, we cannot verify it in the terms of reference, then of course we can say that administration can appoint somebody and be a representative or at least a appointed guest to those meetings.
Yeah.
But if we can find right now that it's a council appointment necessary, then we'll figure that out now.
Okay, perfect. And it doesn't sound like they're having too many meetings. It sounds like they're doing workshops, I believe, in place of meetings right now. And kind of sessions with businesses and things like that. So we'll wait to hear anything if that changes on that. Next up is Drayton Valley Community Foundation. This is Tom again. We do need a council alternate for this. Colin? Okay, great. We'll put Colin in there. Next up is Drayton Valley Hospitality and Tourism. We have Amila as a council member, Colin as the alternate. That's good. Next is Drayton Valley Municipal Library Board is Rick sitting on that. We will need an alternate for that. Who hasn't sat on the library? Amila? Okay, perfect. I seen your hand go right up. Okay, so Amila will be the alternate for that. Next up is EPBR, Monica. Perfect, thank you. Alternate for that, who hasn't? Tom? Oh, you sat on it? Okay, who hasn't sat on it? Rick, do you want to be the alternate? Okay. Next, we have FCSS, Monica. And we require an alternate for that one, yes? You'll be the alternate, Colin? Okay. Colin, Healthy Communities Coalition, we don't have anybody. We need one town council rep. Monica? Okay. And for an alternate? Rick? Okay. North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance, Rick. And then this is typically one counts. Oh, I don't have it on here. Humans Helping Humans. So what was ahead of it? Or oh, homeless and poverty restriction. Yeah, that was, yeah. So next up is North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance, which is Rick. And they do call for an administrative representative as well. So who from admin sits on that? Kundi? I think it is Kundi. You're keeping notes, Hans? Yeah, okay, perfect. So I'll put Kundi's name down. Pembina Area Synergy, we have that always as the deputy mayor attending those. Okay. And then I guess for a alternate would just be if the deputy mayor can't make it, just send out a text and whoever is able to go, we'll do it that way. Next up is Pembina Physician Recruitment is Colin. And for an alternate, who would like to? Yeah, do you want to be the alternate? Okay, Amela, put you there. Yellowhead Regional Library Board, Rick, that makes sense there. Alternate, who is the alternate for the library? Is Amela, do you want to be the alternate there? Amela, just makes sense if you're on the one board for the library. Yeah,
Somebody from administration on there or no?
well,
Or-
that was Doug that had initiated that, but years previously, it's always been
Council.
a counselor. Yeah, it just makes sense. When you go to those quarterly or yearly meetings, it's all council representation there. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's Yellowhead Regional Board. Next up is Humans Helping Humans. Tom, we have you down there. Who would like to be the alternate? Monica? Yeah. It's all about building bridges. Planting olive trees. Next up is Drayton Valley Community Health Foundation. We have Amila there. Who would like to be the alternate? You go as the alternate. Maybe you guys can switch off months. Oh, because you both were wanted to be on it. Oh, okay. Good. If there's time, right? Okay, well, yeah, you guys can figure that one out there, who can, maybe, like I said, alternate on meetings or something, who to go to that. ECDC, Colin, you're going to stay on that one. And who would like to be the alternate for that? Tom? Okay, I'm going to put Tom there. Sure. Youth Advisory Committee, we have Colin. Who would like to be the alternate? You just sat on it. Yeah. Rick or Tom, I think Amila sat on it before, unless you want to sit on it again. Rick. Okay, so that is it for all of the external committees. I think we didn't miss anything, right? But we no longer have RISE. That is the youth, yeah. Yeah, so that's it for external. And then for internal, I think this is current. Go ahead, Monica. Oh, is it not on here? Okay, so we need to add that one. So I'm just gonna, so it's West Central Airshed Society. Did you get that down? West Central Airshed Society? Are you wanting to stay or is someone else wanting to go on it? Okay, leave Monica. Alternate? Tom? Okay, perfect. Tom will be the alternate. Did you get that, Nancy? Okay, wonderful. Okay, so then that is it for external committees. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh. Well, no, that's the one where we had said that it might make more sense for someone from administration to sit on that as they're that direct arm with the chamber and they don't seem to be having a lot of meetings. They're more of workshops right now.
Okay, so if that's confirmed, then we can go by that.
Yeah, I think you were just going to double check with Kundi just to see if, because I think he's currently sitting on there, or if there was something in their terms of reference that was requiring one member of council to sit on that. I think that's what our question was too.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
are you okay with that?
We have a Pembina Area Synergy, which is also one that we belong to. And so generally it's the deputy that takes that job.
Yeah, we still have it as the deputy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there. Next up, we've had on here the Central Alberta Mayors and Reeves, or I guess we're the Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeves, but there has not been a meeting called since Mayor Sohi has taken over. And so we did make the request, or I guess I made the request and had a conversation of perhaps we host that here. I had a conversation with the Reeve at Brazeau County saying, perhaps we host it and we bring some life back up to it and see if we can't get it going. So maybe that's something we can talk about in the next month or two. Next up is our internal committees. We have the Policing, Security, Fire Services Committee. Two of the councillors that would like to sit on there are Amila and Monica. That's good. Okay, Sustainability, Colin and Rick. Rick, you are loving that Sustainability Committee. Good job. Thank you. I think he wants to get an increase to the sustainability budget this year, though, so we can get some sort of motorboat in order to drop the ponds, as well as I believe there was a request for a floating dock so a band can go on it. Just, Colin. So we've got some strategic priorities being formed prior to budget. I'm not sure if you're making note of that, Mr. Vincent, but there's some priorities that are happening. We love our sustainability and we host a Lanterns on the Pond for fall solstice every year. So the community comes together with the Sustainability Committee leading that, and we drop these lovely floating lanterns in the pond with some lights, and it's a beautiful evening. So there's some expansion that wants to happen there in the next year. So sounds fantastic. Next internal committee is Recreation Board, Amila and Colin. You guys are good with that? And then Economic Development Committee. That is, I have Council of the Whole. I know that's something that we wanted to pick up again and maybe have it the same day that we have our governance and priorities meeting, is have our governance and priorities, whether that's part of it or we go into a separate meeting for economic development. We have quite a few delegations that are wanting to come forward too in regards to economic development. So just left that as a whole, same as the Education Committee that falls under that same economic development umbrella there. So we can leave that for now. And that is it then for, just going to go back to my agenda. Did we not do that one? Oh, it's not on the list. Okay, so we have EPAC, Eleanor, yeah, because that was a new one. Eleanor Pickup Arts Center. I don't have it here. Okay. Colin and Rick? Yeah, okay. So the Eleanor Pickup Arts Center, or Colin and Rick, and is that it then? I don't have anything else on my. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, rolling that into economic development. So that is it for the committee appointments then. We have someone sitting both externally and internally. Can I get a motion to amend the committee appointments for the council 2024, 2025 committee term, please? Councillor Sheriff, thank you very much for that. Sure, any debate or question on that?
A question on that, but we also have other people, external people that apply for library or Bradley Foundation,
Mhm.
and things like that. And we handle that on the 30th. Darren, how that works?
For the members at large?
Thank you so much for the question. Yes, that's correct. That's on the 30th, in 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect. So there's a motion to amend the committee appointments. Next up, we have 2.2, proposed 2025 meeting dates. Oh, I didn't. Thank you very much for that. I'll call the motion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you for that. Next up is 2.2, proposed 2025 meeting dates. Did everyone have a chance to look at those? So what was the red on in May or? Oh, that's FCM? I don't have a legend. So the yellow is council, green is governance and priorities, red is FCM, orange is proposing,
Yes.
and as well as the gray.
Yep.
Typically, we've left those always in the past in the summer, and then if needed.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, we did that. So in this case, because they turned out to be canceled, of course, during the last summer, most of those, we suggest like, hey, those are maybe now up for discussion for council to decide whether to skip them. And then, of course, special meetings can always be done, or to leave them in as planned. And then, of course, you see the orange ones turning into yellow and the gray ones turning into green. So it's basically a conversation now to have a council to consider that, to either or skip them, so take them out, or return them to their original planning, as you can see.
Question? Oh, can you use your mic, please?
I think it's better to keep, and then if we don't use them, then we can do the same thing as this year, right? Just don't have meetings.
To keep them as is. So right now we have 3. So the July 2nd to 9th and 30th, were those proposed just governance and priorities?
Those should be in the sequence yellows, so your regular meetings. And the GMP would be the 9th, and then the one in August,
Okay, so there'd be the,
that will be green.
So I guess turn them to yellow and green, but if we don't use them, then we don't use them. That's what I think.
any other comment around? Okay, Mr. Vincent? Perfect, thank you for that. So we could, just going to bring it up here again. We could make a motion to amend the proposed 2025 meeting dates for July and August to include both governance and priorities and regular council meetings. If there's a member of council, if there's no other Questions for administration or comments? If there's a member of council who'd like to make a motion. Councillor Clark? Yes. Amend to July and August to include regular council and governance and priorities. I'd say I do. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for the motion, for the amended motion, the amended motion to accept, oh my gosh, I don't know what you said now, or what we said, to amend the proposed 2025 meeting dates to include both the regular council and governance and priorities July meetings in 2024, 2025. Oh my goodness. And August. Any comment, question, debate on that motion? Then I'll call the motion. All in favor? That is carried, and that is it. I will adjourn our organizational meeting at 1:26 p.m. And then I will jump back into our regular meeting of council, and I will call the meeting back to order. We will reconvene at 1:26 p.m. as well, and we will jump back into our decision items. Are we ready? Both Ms. Thompson and let's give you a minute to get there. We'll jump back into our decision items. Next up is Ms. Lola Strand. We have 9.5, which is Council Letter of Support for Emergency Shelter Funding Report. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We have had a request from the Ministry of Seniors, Community and Social Services that a letter be signed by council showing support for the provision of emergency shelter in the community. This letter would be addressed to the program advisor responsible for our grant and kept in her file.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Sorry, I just got to jump here. So the request from administration is that we send a letter to the program advisor at the Ministry of Seniors, Community and Social Services asking for the current funding, emergency funding that we get for the pods so that it's there.
Just showing support for the
Yeah.
provision of the service.
Any questions for administration? Sure, if you want to make a motion. There's no questions.
I'll make the motion that council send a letter addressed to the program advisor at the Ministry of Seniors, Community and Social Services to show support for the provision of emergency shelter.
Thank you very much for the motion. Any comment, question, debate on the motion? Just comment that I think it's important that we send letters like this. I know that every year we are kind of last minute scrambling to try to find the funding when it comes to our MAP program in the past, and now of course the pods. So if we knew that that funding was in place and we weren't having to kind of hold our breath year after year, it would be nice. So yeah, you can't leave because you made the motion. You got to just wait. So with that being said, if there's no other comment, question, debate on the motion, then I will call the motion. All in favor? And that is carried. Oh, almost. Okay, wonderful. So we'll move along. And our last decision item for today is 9.6, which is the community grants fourth quarter allocation. And this is our last granting allocation for the year, correct?
It is, yes. That's
Perfect.
So for the fourth quarter, we did receive several applications. We've received 2 applications for the Roger Coles Memorial Youth Sport Grant this quarter, as well as 6 applications for community events grants for this quarter. So the allocation for the year is $25,000. After the first to the third quarters have been allocated, the total amount remaining is $6,737.02. So the committee did meet to have a look at the grants and make some recommendations. First looking at the Roger Coles Youth Sport Grants, there was an application made by Tazar Mir for the Canada Rugby U19 Championship. He'll be traveling to Halifax for that championship competition. The amount that he requested was $975. The committee did recommend that we grant him the $975, basically because he meets the criteria and based on the current best practices in order to maximize the grant funding, to grant no more than 1,000. That does fit to grant the 975. Just yesterday, I did confirm that the second youth who applied for this grant, Braden Cryle, he had submitted an application for the Bareback Rider Rodeo in Las Vegas. The request was $10,310. I did just confirm yesterday that this youth is from the county. According to our Roger Coles criteria, this grant is for youth who reside in the town of Drayton Valley. Therefore, I did refer him over to Bradley County, who will be now expecting his application over there. So we had made the recommendation. Without that confirmation, had he been from the town, we had recommended the 1,000. He is not. So this bottom number now will be 3825, not 4825. Then onto the community events grants, we received an application from the Drayton Valley District Agricultural Society. They hosted their 50th anniversary celebration with the tractor pull event on September 7th of 2024. I guess it was a well-attended event. They celebrated their volunteers there as well as 50 years as an organization. The committee did recommend that they do meet the criteria and based on the current best practices to maximize the funding to grant each organization $1,000. We did recommend that we do grant them $1,000. The next application was from Eagle Point Blue Rapids Parks Council for their annual Forbidden Forest Pumpkin Walk, which is being hosted on October 24th. That's always a really well-attended event over at the Pembina Nordic Ski Trails and open to the entire community. So the recommendation by the committee is that they do meet the criteria and based on the current best practices, again, to maximize the grant funding for each organization to receive $1,000. We recommend that they receive their $1,000 request. We got an application from the Evergreen Elementary School for their nutrition program. There was no event date. It's not actually an event. They had asked for any amount. The committee did review this application and the recommendation is to decline this application as it does not meet the criteria and therefore does not qualify for funding support. The next application was for the Drayton Valley District Chamber of Commerce Ladies in Business Day, which is to be hosted mid-January on a Saturday. The recommendation is to decline this application once again as it does not meet the criteria and therefore does not qualify for funding support. The criteria for community event grants is for events that are open to the entire community. This is for a small portion ladies who are in business in the community. Next application was the Cause for Cares Animal Rescue Society Raise the Wolf Comedy Show, which is being hosted this weekend. The request was for $850 and the committee does recommend to grant the $850 to the event to cover expenses needed for that. And it does fit the best practice of giving each organization no more than $1,000. And then the last one was the one that we had recognized is from the county. So therefore the total, if council were to approve the recommendations that the committee has made, would be $3,825, which if approved then would leave us for the year $2,912.02 remaining. So the recommendation is that council approves the 2024 fourth quarter Town of Drayton Valley's community grant applications for a total of $3,825 as presented in report AAR 24-245.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your report. Any questions for administration? Go ahead, Councillor Sheriff.
Madam Mayor,
Or Councillor McGee, go ahead.
sorry, wait. Madam Mayor, the only thing that comes to my mind is we also have a request from Diane Sinclair and the nurses. They're wanting to have to use the McKenzie Center and they want some relief. They didn't have a grant in and they probably don't even know that we have applications for that kind of a thing. But we do have, I see some extra dollars. It would seem to me that, I don't know if we can turn it there or whether we do it some other way, but the function is coming up in November, so it's quickly coming at us. Everybody, I think, has generally read, it's about the hospital staff, senior staff that have left. They just have a function. Generally, there's 40. Everybody wants to come. There's 150. They'll pay for their own food, but they need the McKenzie Center or someplace to have it and to kind of set their food down and give it out. But so I don't know what we would do with that.
That was the Health Foundation?
No, it came through an email through the CAO and council. I'll let Mr. Mr. Von Klauer speak to that.
That's right. Thank you, Chair, and through to the rest of council, but also McGee for this question. So basically, if this would have come directly to our committee for this grant consideration, it would not qualify as it is an internal event. So it's not open for the community. It's for the alumni and for this specific group to organize, and that, yes, they are growing, but it's still not a community event. That is the core of those community event grants. So in that case, this request would still come to another channel, basically to council, if that would be considered, but not through this grant.
Okay, and so we weren't able to get it on this agenda, today's agenda.
That's correct.
And if it would have been on, if they would have had time to apply, they wouldn't have been eligible. So it wouldn't, the recommendation would be to decline the application. Councillor Sheriff?
I was reading over the stuff and I missed, why was the Ladies in Business Day not qualified for a grant?
Because the criteria states that the event needs to be an opportunity for the entire community to participate. And this is a small portion of the community. It's just women and women who are in business.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like,
So
I kind of look at it as women in business. I mean, it's kind of open to the community, but I don't know. If it doesn't
Supporting
meet
the
criteria, I guess.
supporting the community and whole. Just a couple questions. This is the final quarter and the money can't be carried over. Is that correct?
We have carried the funding over.
We have carried the funding over. Okay, I didn't think we could. Okay, so yeah, we could. Yeah, I guess I was going to say, I wasn't sure that I didn't think that we could carry the funding. I thought we had to spend it all in this calendar year. So I was just going to say the Drayton Valley Agricultural Society had requested 1,500 and we were only giving them 1,000. And then the other two that were declined, if we just gave them the remainder of the 250 each, just to, yeah. Yeah. So is there a member of council that would like to make a motion, or if you have further questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So for the motion, and it was read right now, of course, by Ms. Trent, just making sure, because afterwards, when somebody reads this in a couple of years from now, as presented in report AIR 24245, that still includes the $1,000, of course, in that report. So it has to have the amendment and remove the $1,000 for the rodeo request, something like that, without naming a name, but it has to
be an amended
make that
motion.
amendment. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're making a motion, be sure to make an amended motion to either include the, rather than the 4825, it would be the 3825, or if you're wanting to allocate the additional funds, then be sure to be clear of where you would like to make your motion and direct those funds. I'm needing a motion from someone. Councillor Sheriff, sure.
I'd like to make a motion that council approve the 2024 fourth quarter Town of Drayton Valley's community grant applications for the total of $3,825 as presented in the report AIR 24-245.
Or as amended.
The amended total of $3,825. Right?
And so make it sure that if you say as presented in report, IRR, et cetera, minus the $1,000 for the rodeo request.
Okay. As presented in report AIR 24-245 minus the $1,000 for the rodeo. Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you very much for your motion. Any comment, question, debate on the motion? Okay, the motion is on the floor. I'm going to assume Ms. Thompson got the amended motion. I would like to read it back, but yeah, could you read it back to us, please, just to be certain?
The amended total of $3,825 as presented in report AIR 24-245 minus the $1,000.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the motion. I'll now call the motion. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that. That wraps up our decision items. I'll jump right now to municipal reports before we move into close. So we have 11.1, which is Municipal Services Department report. Ms. Shelley Terry is away today. If you have any questions right now in regards to the report that is in our council agenda, I'm sure Mr. Von Claveren will be able to assist you with questions. Or we could wait and hear from Ms. Terry. Any questions in regards to the report? None. Maybe just one question is I see that paving has been completed on 50th, which is fantastic. It looks like they're wrapping up the project. Are we expecting to see those barricades lift this week and celebrating?
Thank you for that question. And of course, everybody is excited to celebrate that and have the road reopened. So the official date, of course, is still at the end of October. So any date earlier than the end of October is a celebration worth. There's not a specific date set yet. So hold your horses in the sense of utilizing this road. Wait till the barricades are gone. They will be gone before the end of the month.
It is pretty exciting. And are we anticipating that the bioswales, all the mulch and rock and the flowers and greenery will go in prior to the opening too, or is that going to be kind of work in progress?
Thank you for that question. I have not heard those details. I would think that's a work in progress because that's still one of the finalizations of that. And of course, certain things have to be later on, but we heard when we did the walkthrough that there's still opportunity to finish as much as possible.
Perfect, perfect. And then I think along 43rd too, that Shelley was talking about, there was going to be some changes that were happening with the bioswales in there. I don't think maybe design changes or something. Will she be talking about those in the future?
We'll wait for an update when she comes in next time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll move along to the council reports. Councilor Germano, you're up first, please.
Thank you. Okay, on the 3rd, I had the opportunity to attend a meeting with Minister Matt Jones. Councillor Clark organized a meeting with ECDC as well as Lola was there. So it was a productive meeting, but I won't go into detail. I'm sure Councillor Clark will mention that on his report. On the 9th, I had the opportunity to meet with Rocky Mountain House Council. They visited Drayton Valley for their retreat, and we were thankful that they picked our community to do their retreat this year. Councillor Sheriffs and Councillor Deputy Mayor Evans was there as well. I think it was very good conversations that we had, understanding the challenges that they are going through. Pretty similar to what we are going through in our community as well. Both communities are similar sized, similar economy, similar setup. So It was prudent to understand that we are not alone on some of these challenges that we are facing, and things that they are doing differently, things that they are doing similar to what we are doing. It was a good meet and greet that we had with them. On the 11th, I had the opportunity to attend the Drayton Valley District Community Learning Association's Thanksgiving dinner. Great meal, also great company there as well. There were some newcomers to the community, as well as different organizations attended the luncheon, and had some good conversations of how can we make our community more attractive to newcomers, and how do we help them settle and make the community their home here. On the 15th, Health Foundation meeting yesterday night, and some good news. The HS and the Health Foundation has finalized the palliative care unit build, and they are hoping that the build construction will start on January 2025. So finally that come to fruition, and everything seems to be sorted out with that. And with that, the Health Foundation is looking at the eSIM lab as well. That's all for my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your report. Deputy Mayor Evans.
Thank you. On the 3rd, I'll be repeating a few things. Tour of 50th Ave. Yeah, it was a nice change to get out and stomp around on a construction project. It's been a little while. Yeah, it looks good. Looks good. It's coming together. Hopefully the residents will enjoy it. Also on the 9th, meeting with Rocky Mountain House Council, and I agree. It was very nice just sitting down and chatting with members of their council and also their administration about what's going on in their town and what struggles they're seeing and how they're addressing them. And I think if we ever, in this last year, kind of want to get away for a strategic planning or something like that, I think it'd be a great idea to go down to Rocky Mountain House and do the same for them. So yeah, well worthwhile. On the 10th, agenda setting, and then on the 15th, our latest sustainability committee meeting. It had been 2 months since we met, so we kind of got caught up on where we were at with a few different things. We did initiate recycling organic waste, which was really wood products. We were separating them out, stacking them up. They've all been chipped, and they're using that for day cover at the landfill, which is good. Let me see. We talked about, I don't know if anybody looked at their latest utility bill, but we had the attached document there, and that was for the available energy efficiency financing for your home. If you want to go through that process, and the next one will be the POR program, protect our ultimate resource. That's what we decided, right, Hans? We picked around 3 or 4 different things and when we were going to slot them in, because we're going to leave the emergency management stuff until the spring when it was more applicable and people would hang on to it. So this is what will be attached to the utility bills. And this is the design for the stickers that stores can put in their window or buy the products that meet the requirements for the POR program, which is you get a little break on the cost. Is it through your utility bills? Do we give them a break or do we give them cash money? Yeah.
It's $100 that's credited to your utility bill.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And then your name gets entered for the $500 draw, I think, for the year.
whoa, I didn't even know about a $500 draw. We might want to update that a little
Yeah,
bit
you
there.
might want to put that out.
Really get people interested. So anyway, we're working on that stuff. We're going to do it every second month. There'll be a separate attachment to your utility bill. Anything else? Waiting for an update on the snow dump area, so that'll probably come to council, I would think, via Shelley. And then we chatted a little bit about the new trail that's going in and what kind of signage we thought should be on there. EPBR, Sandra was talking about they're going to signage their trails, and she wasn't sure. She thought this should be a little bit different. So anyway, we're going to work with them, and we may even buddy up on them to order some signs and get ours outfitted similar to theirs, but with more applicable stuff to sort of a more urban trail as opposed to theirs, more rural. I think that's probably the highlights for the sustainability. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your report. Just to comment, you might want to circle around with Shelley and Jeff from Weyerhaeuser, because part of the criteria for that grant was signage and an educational component. So there might be some dollars. So make sure that it all ties in together, and then that way you might be able to get some additional partnerships and funding to cover that with EPBR as well.
Sure, yeah, I'll do that. And that was kind of the theme there. Let's work together and make sure that we've got the correct signage for both areas, and then is there an opportunity to kind of jump in together and get them all at once? Maybe see some savings there, but I'll touch base with Shelley and go from there.
Perfect. Councilor Sheriff.
So on October 3rd, I had a Zoom meeting with West Central Airship Society, and we had two men presenting, and they were talking about introduction to Alberta emergency management, and it was through Government of Alberta Ministry of Public Safety and Emergency Services. So they talked about mitigation, risk control, prevention, response, and such. It was a really good meeting. And then the tour of the 50th Avenue too. And then on 7th, I had the Yellowhead Regional Library Board trustee meeting. Just the financials, not much of a update really. Then on the 9th, I went to the open house at the new Free Press building, and it was just a little non-alcoholic cocktail hour, kind of snacks and chit chat. Was really run into some people I haven't seen in probably 20 years too. So that was pretty neat. And then dinner with the Rocky Mountain House Council and Administration. And a few things that I actually got out of it. Our community, we see our homeless and crime, and Ryan did the report today, and you know, it's kind of steady. It's not, in comparison, it's honestly not bad. Rocky Mountain House has a population of 7,300 people, and they have 14 RCMP officers right now, and really hard time recruiting. Their crime is, it's not a stolen generator, it's multiple shootings daily. It's really, so we are doing good, I'd say. Also, they are very jealous of our disc golf courses, both of them, and they will look into building their own. So yeah, we did kind of shine in that meeting a little bit in few areas. They were, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's a great reminder how fantastic our community is and the things that we're doing that really highlight us for sure. Thank you for that. Councilor McGee?
Talking about mental health. Got involved with a tent at the chili cook-off. I don't know if anybody was able to get to the chili cook-off, but it was a good place for that little to be. It's not a sanctioned committee by any stretch, but it's one that I sit. The big one that though was the Alberta Forest Products Association. That's Mayor Nancy and I were at the conference, and I thought it went really well. Lots of things to think about around forests, and I had a chance to meet the minister on numerous occasions. More importantly, some of the chief of staffs. And if you do not know, Corey Peebles is the new chief of staff for Todd Lowen, who is the minister. So that's new news, but Mayor Dodds has a number of connections through those chief of staffs, and they are really the people that do the work. And so we need to keep those going, and we did our best to do that. The minister announced a forest resilience committee in his closing speech at the banquet. And so that is now out on the table. I've been asked to sit on that committee. So I'll be learning a little bit about more forests. The other person from Drayton Valley who will chair it is gone. Bob Winship. Bob Winship, who used to work for a long time with Weyerhaeuser, is chairing that committee. So it'll be a good opportunity for me and to learn more about forests. And I think that's really the enough other than Thanksgiving. I should tell you on my way back from a meeting that we had with Covenant Health yesterday, I stopped at BCGE just to ask about the trees that we voted on to take all the trees on 50th. And I think there's some concern, and I think we needed to reconnect that dot somehow. And that would come through, I think, administration. I think it's only the area that they're concerned with is their area. And normally Fortis would come through and they would take just sort of the first 4 feet of the trees and do that kind of a mow. But I think their intention is to take all of the trees. And I think we should be connecting with BCG to say, is that really what you would, is there a way for us to do it differently for their particular area? Because they like the protection of the trees as opposed to the gazebo and things like that are open, and it's not open at the moment. You can't really see them. They're there, but anyway, it's administrative discussion. Covenant Health, I thought it went well. And there will be more to come. Nothing in a hurry, nothing quick, but it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your report, and congratulations on being appointed to that committee. I know that I have known about it for a while, but it has been tight-lipped about it. It wasn't allowed to say anything till the announcement came out. So congratulations. That's very exciting to sit on that, and it's very important. So looking forward to hearing back from you and what's all happening in that industry there. So we have Councillor Clark up next.
Yes, so lots of stuff has been already talked about. One of the things, meeting with Minister Jones, we talked about a bunch of different things, funding for childcare, what quality childcare looks like, what the next couple of years looks like for childcare in Alberta. He did have an ask for us, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I do think it was a good meeting in the sense that, I really appreciated kind of the info that he had on the top of his head. He had a lot of answers to a lot of questions, and they were really succinct answers. So I think that was good. They seem to have their ducks in a row. And of course, I think, I think we understand the stuff they're up against too, working with the federal government and all those sorts of things with childcare and funding and all and that. So I think more to come there. Did the 50th Ave construction tour, attended a couple oil country planning meetings, attended Invest Alberta incentive programs overview, and that was in conjunction with Symbiotic. Kundi was there as well as others. And that was just kind of geared to help Symbiotic understand, some of the funding that's out there for them and some of the stuff they can access. And Invest Alberta was looking to, help them along with that. Next up, I attended the RPAP conference in Wainwright. It was actually a really good conference. One of the things that they really focused on there was the future of healthcare. And the statement was made that we'll see more change in the next 10 years in healthcare than we have in the last 100. So, and a lot of that's just due to technology and just advancements, right? It's just ramping up just like any sort of technology is nowadays. One of the other things that I really took away from there was I was chatting with a fella from University of Alberta who does a lot of placements for student doctors. And one of the things he said is he's having a really hard time getting student doctors placed out in Drayton Valley. And he said Drayton Valley has a lot of really good teaching doctors. And one of the stats he threw out was he said, 80% of doctors that come to Alberta as students stay. So 4 in 5 people that come to Alberta stay. So if we can get them out here, chances are we're going to grab 1 or 2 or 3. So I think that's some follow-up I think we need to do up with the clinics, just to talk about, what are those barriers and what are some of the things we can do to make that work. And lastly, I had a meeting with Tom Copeland and Nancy yesterday. I won't get into specifics, but we talked about various items. He has lots of good ideas for this town, and I think he's committed to this town in many different ways. So that was a really good meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your report. Yeah, it sounds like RPAP was a fantastic conference again this year. For myself, as Councillor McGee had mentioned, I attended the AFPA conference. It was an absolutely fantastic conference. If I would have went a couple years ago, I would have thought it was a good conference, just for the forestry industry that is created in Drayton Valley when we go through those boom and bust cycles, how they keep us afloat, and how those other jobs indirectly trickle into the community, whether it's at the grocery store, the childcare and things like that. But, experiencing and going through a wildfire like we did last year, I have to say this was one of the best conferences I've ever attended. And I can't believe the wealth of knowledge that I gained and the information and everything was just unbelievable. So a big thank you to Weyerhaeuser for inviting me there. I certainly appreciate it. Minister Lowen and Minister Ellis were both there all weekend in attendance, as well as some chief of staffs. So it was a really great opportunity. They talked a lot about unified command, the urgency, the fact that we can't suppress our way out of wildfires. We talked about preventative and mitigating, and the needs to be at the front of our minds. One of the things that they talked about is memories fade quickly, and just because we can't see smoke on the horizon doesn't mean that we stop, right? So it was really fantastic. And, looking back at the 2023 wildfire season, with 36 major wildfires that happened in Alberta, it was devastating for our province. But to also hear that it was just as devastating this year, that we were actually in comparison, which I didn't know. I know Jasper was the big fire that we talked about, but the same, right? And that these fires, 80% or over 80% of them come from lightning, right? So that's huge. They're trying to study the data. They're trying to study so much information. And it's not just about, that suppression. It's about preventing, and it's about coming together as a community. It's not just what we learned in the past about the Emergency Management Command and the people that are fighting. It's about the community. It's about the government. It's about forestry workers. It's about everything to really deal with this and to be prepared for what can be coming in the spring. And just because we're heading into winter doesn't mean we can't have fires either. So learned a lot. So very appreciative and very thankful that I had an opportunity to attend that for sure. And as everybody else mentioned, lots of meetings that have been happening. It's been a very busy October, whether I've had meetings with healthcare, with Minister Jones, with preparing for the oil country, preparing for the upcoming conference in Ottawa, touring the 50th project. Can't wait to see that come to fruition. Meetings with Alberta Council, and just lots happening. So it's going to be a busy next couple months with us moving into budget. And that is it for my report. Is there a member of council that would like to accept both department report, municipal services department report, and council reports as information, please? Councillor Gamana, thank you very much for that. Next up, we have council items, roundtable discussions. I'm not sure if anybody has anything to add here. I will make a note that tonight is Fire Prevention Open House at the Fire Hall at 6 p.m. So if you have time, please stop by there. They've been on a little bit of a tour going to the other fire halls, Breton and Lodgepole, I think you did already. So tonight's in Drayton Valley. So if you have a chance, swing on by there. Does anybody else have anything to talk about here? No? Then is there a member of council that would like to move us into closed, please? I don't have the FOIP section here. Councillor Evans, thank you very much for that. We'll move into closed at 2:04 p.m. and I'll now ask all in favor. That is carried. So we will need a motion coming out of closed for, oh, I guess, yeah, we did. Yes, we did. Okay, so we're going to circle back around to roundtable discussion. We have a couple things here that we need to talk about before we get to the end of our agenda. First up is we've been invited to the Friends Central Alberta elected officials evening of dinner and friendship in Innisfail. That is it in Innisfail? Yeah, that is happening on November 13th. It's always a great opportunity if we can go and engage with other elected officials and administrators to see what's happening in other communities. So I'm not sure who is all interested in going. Go ahead, Councilor Sheriffs.
So we do have a council meeting that day and I won't be here because I am registered for the Clean Energy Forum in Strathcona County on that day. So just so you guys know, like if we need quorum, I won't be here for council meeting. If anybody else is missing anything else. But I'd like to go to that event in Innisfail, so I can just go straight from that.
There to there. Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah, I think I would consider it. Do you have the information? Okay, so I will forward it to you. And then if you can send out an invitation to council and Pat and Elvira and Hans, that would be fantastic. And then I think we have a deadline of November 7th. So we're going to have to decide in the next couple of days who wants to attend. I think I'm probably interested if I can make it work too, right?
If I don't have the council meeting, I should be able to attend as well. But it's a council day, so we need to work on that.
Yeah, if we can be out of here by 3, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a problem of getting there. Just under 2 hours.
Stay over.
Depending on the agenda, yeah.
The only thing I would raise is you also have the committee that for Central Alberta mayors. Is it tied in with that group and we're going to do that
so-
whole thing if somebody gets a dinner invitation or?
So this is the Central Alberta mayors. Typically, I don't attend the Central Alberta mayors. I belong to the Northern Alberta, and that's the mayors that hasn't been, we haven't seen a meeting at all. But I do sit on the mid-sized town mayors leaders caucus. So quite a few of these mayors from the central region
We'll be part of that.
will be part of that, yes. Yeah. So, yeah. It's always nice, I think, like Monica had mentioned, right? To be getting out there and making those connections with other communities and elected officials. So we have a little bit of time. Don't keep it too far in your mind, and then get back to Ms. Thompson, please, for who all wants to go, because we'll have to RSVP for that date. So there's that one. I also sent out an email in regards to this Friday. Holy Trinity is having an awards ceremony. I'm unable to attend. I'm not sure if any of the counselors can attend. If not, then I can just send a little note to her that I'm unavailable. It's not the graduation, it's just their kickoff of the year, so, yeah. Oh, it's not a graduation. It's just they're having a little, an awards ceremony at the Holy Trinity. Yeah, on Friday. Yeah. And that's fine, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's not a problem at all. Yeah, as far as we know. The awards? I think it's at 7. Find the email. Yeah, there's, we have a meeting with our MLA when there's, we did receive an invitation for, I think it was an Indigenous celebration that's happening on Friday as well, but we do have a meeting with the MLA. No, that's the Holy Trinity one. Yeah, starts at 7. Yeah, it's short. It's very short. Oh, I thought it was 11 and 3. Well, we got the invitation. Whoever can make it, make it. I know that schedules are very busy right now and everybody seems to be double and triple booked. So If you're able to attend these things, that's fantastic. And if you're not, then we'll have to, some of these come in really short notice, so it's hard to delegate who can go to what. But when our calendars are already filled, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to be everywhere. So it is understandable too. Does anybody have anything else? Go ahead, Councillor McGee.
But just get handled, or are you gonna bring it to 30? That's the agenda? Yes. Okay. The other one was the we're gonna have to sometime or other have a talk about the question that I raised about the library and the bathrooms. It's kind of out there somewhere, but it's not anywhere. Unless somebody has some news for me, they're now getting a little bit more sitting there, heated about hours, having bathrooms and not having bathrooms. Not heated, but we're having that discussion. So. You already knocked the hole.
Can I just ask a question too? Do they not have a key to the bathrooms?
So thank you for the question, and basically to everybody in council. So it's a procedural thing at the moment, of course. So yes, they have access to the bathrooms in the foyer as soon as the Civic Center closes. So after hours of our front desk, the library has the access to the bathrooms. They also, of course, have then the monitoring of the bathrooms, the usage, which is hard for them to do out of their area because it's in the main foyer. So they have limited visual on it. So that's why they chose to operate it as they do in the evenings with certain hours of closure and not doing it or be open and of course have to handle that usage of those bathrooms. The other thing is we recently got some more information of our, let's say, search for what is the opportunity for the remodeling, because we did have one quote, and then of course inspection and making sure that everything is to building code as the proposed changes. That had to tie in with the usage of the building, the occupancy load, and now we have the information just in. I think it's also shared with Rebecca. I'm not 100% sure, but that was just this week, which is something that we are looking into a little bit more, what that means. So changing a small thing in a building means you have to now go up to every code that you have for that building, for that, and in this case, washrooms. So you have to go to code if you're changing your washrooms that we have right now. Going to code is most likely a bigger renovation than we all hoped for, anticipate. And we're looking into how big that is at the moment, what those requirements are. If you don't touch anything, you're grandfathered in. If you touch something, in this case, changing a door to the other side, you will have to go to complete building code for washroom facilities.
So it wouldn't just be specific to the restrooms out in the foyer. It now applies to the entire building to bring up to building code?
It applies to the library service and the people that they can have in the library and the service that they have. So their occupancy load, their services, and then the usage of washrooms. We don't have a lot of public in our facility. Let's say the front desk is the only location for public access, and basically down here, which is lower. So the access to the library and their services, that building load capacity will most likely be a big change for those washrooms to get them up to code as soon as we touch them. We're looking into it right now, what it exactly is, but we'll get some more information.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Evans?
So are you implying that the bathroom would have to be much bigger to manage the load of users in the library? Is that?
That's correct. It has to do with the size of the bathrooms, most likely itself, and the amount of bathrooms.
Oh, okay. They may need additional bathrooms even after they open that up. Okay. But it doesn't apply to the whole building, just the bathroom area. Because otherwise we'd need to put an elevator in there, I think.
That's correct. It only
Yeah,
applies
okay.
to the bathrooms because that's what you touch.
Yeah.
That's the building code that then has to be
Okay.
taken care of.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Lastly, would we consider having them join us at the Christmas party? It's just an ask of theirs. I don't know, we seem to be some distance apart, and yet they're part of our lease, and it just seems to me that they could probably even eat lunch in the lunchroom. It's more of a problem than you think, but.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, we'll look at that, of course. I know there has been certain conversations in the past, and let's say we'll take a look at what that means right now for being together in this building / Christmas party, what we can do together maybe.
Mhm. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I think it's up to administration to how they want to handle that. One of the things we have to consider is that then do we invite all of our organizations or groups that are in our facilities like Cause for Critters and everyone then at the Rotary House, right? And things like that. So
A lot of other organizations.
and that rent our buildings and we provide, I have agreements with, so.
We have Mackenzie Center and others that you can sign up and have your own Christmas party.
The Jingle Balls, yeah,
That kind of stuff. So it's available. So, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Councilor Kamana?
Yeah, just an extension of that. I think with today's presentation, as well as these discussions we are having, I would like to know a little bit more about how shelter boards are handled and all the other aspects of that as well. Just because about, banned individuals there, I'm hearing that, of course they're banned, but I'm hearing that they are there. They let them in sometimes and stuff like that, and creating more issues. So this security thing that we are going to look at, and is it gonna solve some of those problems and stuff like that? So at some point, I know this is roundtable discussion, so just putting it out there, trying to understand a little bit more on how we can, streamline things there as well.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Thanks for the questions. I think it's good to, after a couple of months, to report to council on the two things that have been changed basically in the operations. One thing is the outreach worker that we have. It's good to see what her progress is and the work, how she does that, what the connections and the relationships are. To report on that, and including, of course, then the security as well. So when we set that up, it's good to do that in a couple of months to come back to council and report on that and see what the, let's say, changes are that we see from those two new things. And those are really new things that are with the support of the province and with the partner organizations, ways to mitigate and help out our vulnerable community, plus our volunteers that are doing the work.
That's right, yeah. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, does we have anything else? RMA conference is coming up. When is the RMA conference? November 4 to 7. Okay, that is. We should, a couple should go. It's important. I think it was nice to actually see how many counselors from the county did we see? That's the first time at Alberta Munis. The first time. Yeah. 3 or 4, right? Yeah, she's there through FCM, yeah. When is the deadline? Do we know when the deadline is for that? For registration? And could we get perhaps a summary of all of our budgets where we are? That way we can determine we've got left a little bit. I think we're all pretty good. So I mean, if we're all looking good in our budgets, because Alberta Munis didn't take up a lot, and I don't think we've been to, and bills as well. So if we're all wanting to go, or the majority. 21st? Oh, so this week we're gonna have to decide. Monday's the deadline? Okay, so we'd have to decide by Monday. What do we have on the calendar that week? 7th to? Oh, so what's the date, sorry, for? 4 to 7th. And then the 8th is our big Oilers Oil Country evening here that week as well. So that's big. Oh, wow. Do you have that in yours? You should. So, yeah, it got sent out. Yeah. I don't know. So, yeah, if we can get a calendar invite for November 8th for the Oilers Oil Country evening here, and then, the 21st is the deadline for RMA. October 21st is the deadline for RMA. So we're having to decide in the next couple days of who's wanting to go. I did ask Ms. Thompson to send out just an update of our budgets to see kind of where everybody is. We do have Councillor Ballas's budget too, that there's a little bit left over in there if somebody was wanting to attend as well. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, and I would say make the invite for the Oilers Day, the whole day, 8:45 in the morning.
Yes.
And it starts with the opening until the evening with the Thunder game. So make it a full day potential
Yeah.
invite. So that the
8:30
council knows
a.m.,
it's a
that's
full day
right.
event.
Thank you for that, Hans. Yeah, so opening ceremony is slated for 8:45 at the Mackenzie Conference Center that day. So you're going to be wanting to arrive early for that. I imagine parking will be a little bit hectic. So yeah, full day if we can have in our calendars for that. Yeah. Oh, we'll see after Nancy sends that out. Okay, if that is it, nobody else has any roundtable discussions, that is the end of our agenda for today. We have no information items. We have come and gone out of our closed session, and I will adjourn the meeting at 2:41 p.m.